Chapter 713. There's quite a lot of them, Xing Hui, who was leading the way, slashed out with his sword. The air pressure that was constantly compressed formed a visible airflow that whistled as it plowed out a nearly 5-kilometer vacuum passageway in front of him. Everything in the passageway, from the annihilation grade to the lord-level ferocious beasts, was crushed into powder by this sword aura without any suspense, turning into a bloody mist that filled the air. Even so, as he continued to approach the space passageway, the ferocious beasts around him seemed to be unable to kill them all. Their numbers were increasing. Although my physical strength is strong, there are still obvious limitations. At least, my efficiency in killing these ferocious beasts is obviously much lower. The reason I used this method to kill the ferocious beasts earlier was to make it easier for the hornless dragon squad behind me to collect data. Now, their data collection should be more or less complete. It's time to change the method. Xing Hui looked at the ferocious beasts that were surging in from all directions and put away the scarlet abyss sword in his hand. This scene fell into the eyes of Jiang Xingdao and the 10 members of the hornless dragon squad who were following behind him. Instantly, their eyes widened. "Chief, what is he doing? There are just too many ferocious beasts. Even if Chief can finally get close to the space passageway, he probably won't have the time to observe it. Damn it, I didn't expect there to be so many ferocious beasts near the space passageway. The ferocious beasts we see now are probably no less than 100,000. Moreover, none of these ferocious beasts are lower than lord level. If these ferocious beasts form an army and swarm out, who can stop them? Damn it, where did so many ferocious beasts come from? If we kill so many ferocious beasts one by one, even an Iron Man would collapse from exhaustion." The members of the hornless dragon squad looked at the sea of ferocious beasts surrounding Xing Hui and his group. Each and every one of them spoke furiously and unwillingly. However, almost at the same time as they finished speaking, they saw Xing Hui leap forward, breaking through the sound barrier in an instant. With a speed far faster than before, he shot rapidly in the direction of the space passageway. Before they could see where Xing Hui had gone, an unprecedentedly intense light seemed to shine between heaven and earth. In their field of vision, they suddenly saw a divine sword leap out of Xing Hui's body as he charged out. It was a supreme divine sword in the next instant that transformed into a sun. The blazing sun shone brilliantly. It was as if they were standing right in front of a detonated nuclear bomb. The terrifying radiation immediately robbed the hornless dragon squad of their vision, hearing, and even smell, causing their eyes to be filled with endless light. Vision did not exist. There was no sense of hearing. The sense of touch did not exist. Nothing existed. At this moment, the 10 members of the hornless dragon squad, including the legendary Marshal Saint Jiang Xingdao, thought that they were already dead. In their eyes, in their minds, and in their thoughts, there was nothing else. After an unknown period of time, perhaps an instant, perhaps an hour, the suffocating, despair-inducing white light quickly dissipated. Everything between heaven and earth returned to the eyes of the crowd, allowing them to regain their sense of sight, touch, hearing, and smell. For a moment, the 10 members of the hornless dragon squad, including the legendary Marshal Saint Jiang Xingdao, began to pant heavily, as if they were drowning people who had just been fished out of the water. However, before they could catch their breaths, they were shocked to notice the strangeness of their surroundings. Something was wrong. Something was extremely wrong. Silence. Their surroundings were too quiet, so quiet that it was frightening. It should be known that before the blazing white light that filled their eyes and filled the heavens and earth spread out, they were surrounded by a sea of ferocious beasts. In all directions, there were tens of thousands of great lord, disaster, annihilation, and even apocalyptic ferocious beasts. The roars of the ferocious beasts were deafening, and the blood of the ferocious beasts soared into the sky. That kind of oppression made Jiang Xingdao and the others, who were at most able to barely deal with disaster-level ferocious beasts, feel as if they were in hell. But now, all the roars of the ferocious beasts seemed to have disappeared in an instant. This sudden change caused them to look in all directions at once. And then they saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. Ferocious beasts. Tens of thousands of ferocious beasts. From lord to apocalyptic beasts, densely packed ferocious beasts. However, what was different from before was that these endless ferocious beasts were all lying quietly on the ground. There were no wounds on their bodies, no blood, and no painful screams before they died. But without exception, all of them had lost all signs of life. In an instant, tens of thousands of ferocious beasts died. Apart from them, the area within a radius of more than 10 kilometers seemed to have completely turned into a forbidden zone for life. All life had been wiped out, including the apocalyptic beasts that were so powerful that they could bring a calamity to the human world. Such a strange scene, such a terrifying scene, caused everyone to feel so depressed that they almost went crazy. What happened? What exactly happened? The Hornless Dragon team leader's heart trembled. He felt an inexplicable fear spread throughout his body. It was a fear that came from the depths of his soul. Faced with this phenomenon of being so powerful that it was suffocating, Jiang Xingdao, who was a legendary martial saint, was not much better off than the members of the Hornless Dragon team whose cultivations were at the Lord and Great Lord level. However, after forcibly suppressing the terror in the depths of his heart, he finally thought of something, and uncontrollable astonishment once again appeared in his eyes. Martial will. This is martial will. Martial will. The martial will of a warrior sage. Fire Wolf in the team instantly widened his eyes. That sword. That great sun. Dongyang Sword Codex. The sword will cultivated from the Dongyang Sword Codex. The great sun shines brilliantly, illuminating all living beings. Jiang Xingdao forcefully closed his eyes, allowing his mind to be completely immersed in the scene of the great sun leaping out from Tsing Hui's body. To think that a human's martial will can be cultivated to such an extent. The Glass Dragon team leader also took in a deep breath. Recalling the feeling from earlier, he felt as if his worldview had been completely shattered. Relying on his martial will to wipe out all living beings within a radius of more than 10 kilometers. Oh my God, how powerful must his martial will be? This. Is he still human? Crimson Fox let out a cry that sounded like a painful groan. Alright, let's not talk anymore. Let's hurry up and catch up. Otherwise, the ferocious beasts in the surroundings will quickly fill up the gap. By then, it'll be difficult for us to move forward again. As the Hornless Dragon team leader spoke, the war chariot once again moved forward. Along the way, they naturally passed by the incomparably huge and terrifying ferocious beasts' corpses. These terrifying creatures that were originally so powerful that they were undefeatable in everyone's eyes had their consciousness destroyed forever under the impact of a human's martial will. Just thinking about this kind of power, how much despair would that be? After a short while, when everyone slowly recovered from the suffocating aura and realized that this powerhouse was in existence on their side, everyone gradually became excited. With such a powerhouse on the human side, why should they worry about not being able to repel the ferocious beasts? Why should they worry about not being able to deal with the extraterrestrial civilization that had invaded Earth? Mental storm. This is a secret technique that uses mental power. Even though this secret technique is more basic, but my control of this secret technique is still lacking. Even though I consciously avoided the Hornless Dragon team members and charged more than 10 kilometers away, I still almost turned them into idiots. Tsing Hui rubbed his temples. He was still not used to the secret technique of the Xia Empire's mental power. If not for the fact that he could not use his true qi and use his remarkable abilities, he would never have chosen this half-baked mental storm technique to sweep through the thousands of ferocious beasts in all directions. Fortunately, after the mental storm cleared the area, all the ferocious beasts within a radius of more than 10 kilometers were wiped out. Next, he only needed to deal with the ferocious beasts near the spatial passage. The Hornless Dragon team's war chariot had been heavily modified, and its speed could not be said to be slow. It charged through the wilderness at a speed of more than 100 kilometers per hour. Tsing Hui did not have to wait for long before they caught up. The group moved forward again. After killing another 4 apocalypse-level ferocious beasts and more than 100 annihilation-level ferocious beasts, Tsing Hui, the hornless dragon team, Jiang Xingdao, and the rest finally appeared in front of the spatial passage that was more than 30 meters in diameter. This spatial passage is indeed man-made. As far as I know, even vacuum-shattering powerhouses are unable to construct a spatial passage. To construct a spatial passage, one must either be a divine true body powerhouse of the Kunpeng bloodline, a maverick array grandmaster, or an invincible being who can create a world with a thought. Tsing Hui looked at the spatial passage in front of him with a heavy gaze. Whether it was a divine true body powerhouse of the Kunpeng bloodline, a maverick array grandmaster, or an invincible being who can create a world with a thought, none of them were people he could fight against. The so-called extraterrestrial civilization was much more complicated than he had imagined. Sacred swordsman Tsing Hui, can you see the image behind the spatial passage? How is this spatial passage formed? Jiang Xingdao and the rest of the hornless dragon team came to Tsing Hui's side and asked respectfully. After killing so many people and witnessing the terrifying strength that Tsing Hui had displayed along the way, he had become somewhat omniscient and omnipotent in the eyes of these people. Back then, was the spatial passage on Mount Dongyang closed like this? Tsing Hui asked. The spatial passage on Mount Dongyang? Jiang Xingdao thought for a moment and immediately replied, in fact, the spatial passage on Mount Dongyang closed on its own for no apparent reason. Moreover, a spatial passage is usually the most powerful when it is opened, but it will slowly shrink as time passes. For example, the spatial passage in our Yuhai province was more than 50 meters wide when it was first opened, but now it has shrunk to 30 meters. According to the inference of our scientists, it is not easy for the extraterrestrial civilization that invaded our civilization to maintain a spatial passage like this. Tsing Hui looked at the spatial passage in front of him. If he had the many miraculous abilities of the Son of Chaos, he could still transform into the Kunpeng divine beast and use its understanding of the laws of space to destroy this spatial passage. But now, has anyone been to the other side of the spatial passage? Yes. Jiang Xingdao's expression was gloomy as he replied, but no one came back alive, no return. Tsing Hui looked at the spatial passage in front of him and then suddenly drew his sword. The moment he drew his sword, Jiang Xingdao and the rest felt a gust of wind sweep across a radius of more than 10 kilometers, blowing them so hard that they almost lost their balance. All the air seemed to be extracted and compressed in an instant, then turned into a visible sword ray that slashed into the spatial passage in front of them, but, as the rings of spatial fluctuation spread, this terrifying sword ray was like a small stone thrown into a lake. It only caused a slight ripple before it was completely swallowed up and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 7:14. This level of power is not something I can touch right now. Tsing Hui's heart sank slightly. He could sense the existence of the laws at the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth realm. When he reached the profound void realm, he could already borrow a portion of the power of space, but that was in the divine wilderness world. In Tsing Hui's senses, the world of earth, or rather the entire universe, seemed to be in a special state of tranquility. This kind of tranquility caused the laws of the entire world to not appear, and there was no vitality. Even though Tsing Hui had a foundation of understanding the laws in the divine wilderness world, he could not display any of it on earth. He could only rely on his own body and mind to fight against the beasts. Sword Saint Tsing Hui. How is it? Do you have a way to close this spatial passage? Jiang Xingdao came behind Tsing Hui and asked. Unknowingly, he used honorifics in his tone. I don't have a way at the moment. But, Tsing Hui thought of the strange similarities between Earth and the divine wilderness world, as well as the mythical beasts and sword immortals that appeared in Earth's myths and legends. After a moment of silence, he said, I need to find some information. If my guess is correct, I might have a way to destroy these spatial passages and close them. You really have a way. Good, good, good. When we go back, we will immediately start a project for you and report this project to the Supreme Council. We will gather everyone's strength to assist Sword Saint Xing Hui. If we can really destroy and close the spatial passage, Sword Saint Xing Hui, you will be the greatest contributor to saving our Earth's civilization. Xing Hui glanced around. An endless stream of beasts had quickly surrounded them, filling the gap that Xing Hui had cleared with his mind storm. He said, "Let's leave this place first." "Okay, we will evacuate immediately." Jiang Xingdao agreed forcefully and made a hand gesture. The giant war chariot immediately moved and began to break out of the encirclement. Due to Qing Su's earlier massacre with the mental storm, he had slain quite a few apocalypse-level feral beasts. As for the annihilation and calamity-level feral beasts, he had slain countless of them. Breaking out of the encirclement this time was clearly much easier. When night was about to fall, Xing Hui, Jiang Xingdao, and the others had already passed through some of the outposts in the human garrison area. When they arrived at the periphery of the fortress, Jiang Kunlun, Deputy Commander Qi Jun, Wu Biishan, and even the secretary of the great governor, Shi Chui, and the daughter of the Warrior Association's president, Ran Sini, had already been waiting here for a long time. Seeing the war chariot covered in the blood of ferocious beasts, all the officers and soldiers saluted the war chariot as if they were welcoming a hero. "Welcome back, hero." After the salute, Jiang Kunlun was the first to walk forward. He welcomed Xing Hui, Jiang Xingdao, Qi Long, and the others from the war chariot. After these people came down, professionals quickly came forward. They took some of the important equipment and information from the war chariot and gathered a team of experts to study it. Jiang Kunlun looked at Jiang Xingdao and Xing Hui with enthusiasm. "I wonder if your trip went well. Can you take a look at the space tunnel in the Jade Sea?" Xing Hui nodded and did not speak. Jiang Xingdao took over the conversation and said, "I saw it. The space tunnel's current situation is better than what the experts estimated. Right now, the diameter of the space tunnel in the Jade Sea should be around 31.2 meters. 31.2 meters. That is great. With this size, I am afraid it will not be easy for the Annihilation-class beasts to come out. It looks like as long as the space tunnel does not suddenly expand like it did a few years ago, the space tunnel in the Jade Sea will be completely closed in 10 years. Jiang Kunlun suddenly looked happy. The other secretaries, Shi Chui and Ran Sini, the daughter of the Warrior Association's president, smiled when they heard the news. To be able to get such news, their trip was not in vain. "Hello, Sword Saint Xing Hui. I am the secretary of the great governor, Shi Chui. Nice to meet you." At this time, Shi Chui and Ran Sini came forward and started to greet Xing Hui. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Jiang Kunlun winked at the leader of the Qi Long squad. The leader of the Qi Long squad suddenly came to his side and whispered, "General, Sword Saint Xing Hui's power is scarier than we thought. This time, when he went to the space tunnel, he killed 5 Annihilation-class beasts. The Annihilation-class beasts are around 230 to 260. As for the Disaster-class beasts, there are definitely more than 1,000 of them, 5 Annihilation-class beasts, more than 200 Annihilation-class beasts, and more than 1,000 Disaster-class beasts." When Jiang Kunlun heard the Qi Long's words, even though he was mentally prepared, he could not help but gasp at this moment. "Oh my God! Annihilation-class beasts! He can really fight Annihilation-class beasts with a human's body of flesh and blood. Moreover, he killed 5 Annihilation-class beasts, General." The energy level displayed by Sword Saint Xing Hui when he fought with the Annihilation-class beasts, should be far above that of the Annihilation-class beasts. According to the calculation method calculated by the experts, Sword Saint Xing Hui's true energy level should be more than 1 level above the Annihilation-class beasts. It should be at least 2 levels. When the Qi Long said this, he thought of the terrifying scene where Tsing Hui killed the doomsday crocodile with one sword and killed several annihilation-class beasts with just his martial will at the last moment. He could not help but shudder. Sword Saint Tsing Hui's energy level had definitely reached the level where he could see annihilation-class beasts as nothing. You mean that our estimation of him, based on the annihilation-class beasts data model, needs to be increased by 2 levels? At least 2 levels. The Qi Long nodded heavily and said with a slightly pale face, moreover, Sword Saint Tsing Hui has mastered a powerful killing technique. According to Chief Jiang Xingdao, it's a martial will that can only be condensed by a martial saint expert. However, Sword Saint Tsing Hui's martial will is unbelievably powerful. When we got close to the spatial passageway, we were surrounded by a sea of beasts. At that time, Sword Saint Tsing Hui directly activated his martial will. It was as if he had turned into a blazing sun. In an instant, all the beasts within a radius of 13 kilometers were wiped out. From the annihilation-class beasts to the Lord-class beasts, none of them were spared. A radius of 13 kilometers. Jiang Kunlun's eyes widened. A diameter of 13 kilometers. This was already equivalent to an entire prefecture-level city, which was the entire area of a large city. Many large cities did not even reach this standard. In other words, Tsing Hui had mastered an unsolvable killing technique that could easily wipe out the lives of millions of people in a prefecture-level city. This kind of destruction was even more terrifying than the destruction of a nuclear bomb. Even if a 1,000,000-ton nuclear bomb exploded, if one hid in a bunker beforehand, as long as one was not in the center of the nuclear explosion, there would still be a high probability of survival. However, according to the Qi Long, Tsing Hui's large-scale killing technique, unsolvable. To living creatures, there was no way to defend against it. Martial artist, Jiang Kunlun took in a deep breath. He knew what martial will was. He himself was a cultivator who was powerful enough to stand up against great lord-level ferocious beasts. It was exactly because he understood what martial will was that he truly understood how terrifying martial wills like Qing Su, which could manifest martial wills that could annihilate all living beings within a range of 13 kilometers, were. Moreover, according to the Qi Long, Tsing Hui's martial will's attack range ranged from annihilation-class beasts to lord-class beasts. Did that not mean that if he could reduce the power of his martial will and expand its range, the killing range would far exceed the number of 13 kilometers? A humanoid nuclear bomb. What was a humanoid nuclear bomb? This was a true humanoid nuclear bomb. Also, there's another data, I'm not sure if it's accurate, speak. Jiang Kunlun took in a deep breath, mentally prepared to be shocked. When the Green Ruins Sword Saint manifested his martial will, he seemed to be trying to avoid accidentally injuring us. He erupted with his full strength to widen the distance between us, and according to our calculations, the speed he displayed when he erupted with his full strength should have reached 5 times the speed of sound. When Jiang Kunlun heard the Qi Long report this number, even though he was mentally prepared, his body could not help but sway. 5 times the speed of sound, 5 times the speed of sound, Mach 5. Although it could not be compared to a ballistic missile, it was impractical to use a ballistic missile to attack a moving target. Among the remaining missiles, the fastest Divine Arrow missile could only reach Mach 9, which was 9 times the speed of sound, to hit a human martial artist who could move at 5 times the speed of sound with this speed. It was wishful thinking. In other words, if Sword Saint Tsing Hui were to do evil, there would be no weapons on earth that could stop him. Jiang Kunlun muttered to himself. As someone in power, it was natural for him to want to control all uncontrollable factors in his own hands. Although there were apocalyptic-level beasts in Earth's civilization, once the apocalyptic-level beasts walked out of the interference range of space fluctuations, the human army could still kill the apocalyptic-level beasts by paying a huge price. Otherwise, the human race would have been wiped out long ago. But now, the appearance of Sword Saint Tsing Hui, a martial artist who did not follow the rules of common sense, had undoubtedly broken the original structure of the world. A terrifying life form that was completely uncontrollable and could not be restrained by any force, it was born. Organize all the information immediately and gather a team of experts to analyze the detailed data of Sword Saint Xing Hui as soon as possible. Also, establish a life model, behavioral model, and psychological model of Sword Saint Xing Hui. Inform all the senior members of the high-level parliament that as the chairman, I'll hold a video conference tonight. Jiang Kunlun summoned the guards behind him and ordered softly. At the same time, he secretly glanced at Xing Hui who was talking to Ran Xini and Shi Chui. The appearance of a human martial artist whose energy level was one level higher than an apocalypse-level dire beast was a joyous occasion for humans. However, if this human martial artist was far above the apocalypse-level dire beast, or even above the entire Earth civilization, then no one could judge whether this matter was good or bad. Chapter 7:15. Hello, Sacred Swordsman Xing Hui. I've heard my father mention your name since I was a child. Just a month ago, he sighed with regret. He said that if Sacred Swordsman Xing Hui hadn't disappeared, with the martial arts talent you showed at that time, you could have at least reached the level of a disaster-level dire beast. I didn't expect that in just a month, Sacred Swordsman Xing Hui would appear out of nowhere, and the ability you showed is far beyond our imagination. It's really amazing. In the Jade Sea Fortress, the daughter of the Warrior Association's president, Ran Xini, found an opportunity to talk with Xing Hui in a natural and unrestrained manner. Her expression faintly showed her admiration for Xing Hui. The president of the Warrior Association, Ran Donglai, had great influence in the local area. He even held the position of the deputy speaker of the Wuxia region's high-level council. Although he did not hold the position of deputy speaker of the Earth Federation Supreme Council, he still entered the Supreme Council and became one of the top few people in the world. His daughter naturally had endless prestige in the entire Earth Federation, and their Ran family had also risen in the entire Wuxia region. They could be called one of the top 10 families in the entire Wuxia region. With this kind of background, coupled with the fact that the Ran family was a big family more than a decade ago, under the influence of the family's influence, Ran Xini was the best in terms of appearance, temperament, and speech. The number of suitors in the Wuxia region was probably enough to circle the capital. She was smart and understood the reason why her father asked her to meet Xing Hui. Therefore, when she talked with Xing Hui, she also tried her best to show her charm and at the same time flattered Xing Hui. From time to time, she even showed a hint of admiration in her eyes. I can guess what the Warrior Association is thinking, so there's no need to say anything unnecessary. Tell your president for me that if I can find Jiang Ningji, I will join the Warrior Association. There's no need to talk about other things for the time being. Xing Hui said bluntly. Hearing Xing Hui mention Jiang Ningji's name, Ran Xini's expression did not change much. She still smiled and said, "Please rest assured, Sacred Swordsman Xing Hui. We have currently mobilized all the manpower of the Warrior Association. All the registered warriors have received the relevant task to find Miss Jiang Ningji. I believe that with our Warrior Association's channels, it won't be long before you can meet Miss Jiang Ningji." I hope so. Xing Hui's expression was calm. Jiang Ningji was different from him. But Xing Hui, Jiang Ningji. But Jiang. She had probably been living in anonymity all these years. It was definitely not easy to find her in a short period of time. Especially in recent years, Earth's civilization had been invaded by extraterrestrial civilizations. Hundreds of millions of humans had been displaced, and hundreds of millions of humans had died in this disaster that had swept across more than half of Earth. Under such circumstances, no one knew if Jiang Ningji had met with any accident. Sacred Swordsman Xing Hui, you are also a sacred swordsman who has been famous for many years. You have been famous in the martial arts world more than 10 years ago. Do you think you can take some time to register with our Warrior Association? After all, any warrior can be regarded as a member of our Warrior Association. Ran Sini said with a smile as she twirled the ends of her hair in a feminine manner with her slender fingers. It's not too late to let me join when you find her. After Tsinghui finished speaking, he stopped talking and quickly went inside the fortress. At the same time, he said, I just came back from the space channel. I have a lot of things to think about, so I won't accompany you for the time being. While speaking, he had already left Ran Sini behind. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that he still had to rely on the Warrior Association's channels to find Jiang Ningji, he wouldn't have bothered to deal with the Warrior Association since they had watched the destruction of the Eastern Sun Sword sect. Seeing Tsinghui leave quickly, Ran Sini's smiling face gradually turned cold. As a martial artist, do you really have the guts to go against our Martial Artist Association? Do you think you have forgotten your roots after cultivating to become a top powerhouse? Humph. Ran Sini looked a little dissatisfied. But, considering her father's order and Tsinghui's incredible combat power, she had to suppress the dissatisfaction in her heart. I'll waste a few more days. If you still don't know what's good for you, I'll ask my father to send someone else. I'm too lazy to serve you anymore. Just when the daughter of the Warrior Association's president was dissatisfied with this mission, the high-level meeting of the Wuxia region was already held under the initiative of Marshal Jiang Kunlun. Not only the great governor Lv Zhongyuan attended this meeting, but also the president of the Warrior Association, Ran Donglai. The remaining 6 senior governors were all present except for one who was unable to attend due to space interference. In addition to these chairman-level high-level officials, there were more than 40 councillors gathered together. These 40 councillors were all senior councillors in the council, and their weight was higher than that of ordinary councillors. Everyone, this is our latest edited data. Please take a look. In the video conference room, Jiang Kunlun was playing a video at this moment. And what was shown in the video was the first disaster-level beast that Tsinghui encountered. This beast's energy level is disaster level. Jiang Kunlun said. A disaster-level beast? Everyone present was a high-ranking existence, and they held amazing rights in their hands. Even in the face of a disaster-level beast, they could remain calm. Back then, the disaster-level dire beast had caused fatal casualties to an armored division, leading to the deaths of tens of thousands of people. However, the main reason for that was the interference of spatial fluctuations, which caught everyone off guard. Until now, it was already impossible for a disaster-level dire beast to cause a disaster that killed tens of thousands of people like that time. If those disaster-level dire beasts rushed out of the spatial fluctuations range alone, it would only be a matter of ammunition to kill that disaster-level dire beast. Everyone, please take a look. This is the main character of our meeting this time, Tsinghui, nicknamed Sword Saint. After Jiang Kunlun said that, Qing Su had already gotten off the tank. Then, under the cautious gazes of all the senior representatives and chairmen, he turned into a streak of light and directly crashed into the disaster-level beast, killing it on the spot. Sure enough, it's worthy of having an energy level above the apocalypse-level beast, it's really terrifying. I'm afraid the disaster-level beast is nothing to him. I thought that the rumor was exaggerated, but now it seems, this martial artist named Tsinghui may really have the power above the apocalypse-level beast. Seeing this scene, more than 10 people immediately suppressed their exclamations. This is the data we got from the collision just now. However, according to Councillor Jiang Xingdao, this data is almost meaningless. After Jiang Kunlun finished speaking, he turned his gaze to Senior Councillor Jiang Xingdao, who also attended this meeting. Jiang Xingdao nodded and said, for us martial artists, our true power will completely condense into a point and erupt. In fact, what can really be observed is probably only 1/3 of the power that erupts. Even if we don't use our full strength, this kind of power control can be more precise. For example, if I don't use my full strength, the power that escapes from a blow is even only 1/5 of the actual power, or even less. 1/5, or even less, everyone memorized this data. The image on the screen changed and showed the scene of Tsing Hui's first confrontation with an annihilation-level beast. Facing such a terrifying beast that had never been killed by a human's individual strength, the dozens of counselors all sat up straight. When they saw the scene of Tsing Hui killing the annihilation-level beast like how he dealt with the disaster-level beast, there was a burst of discussion in the crowd again. Even the annihilation-level beast was killed so easily. It seems that Tsing Hui really has the strength above the apocalypse-level beast. After all, only by being 2 realms higher than the apocalypse-level beast can he achieve instant kill on a target creature of a lower realm. It's too early to say this now. We can't make a final judgment before we really fight the apocalypse-level beast and show the results of the fight. Let's continue watching. A moment after the voice was heard, the image quickly jumped to the appearance of the first apocalypse-level beast. When they saw the apocalypse-level beast that was as tall as a mountain but moving quickly, everyone's heart sank at the same time. If the annihilation-level beast left the range of the space interference, humans could still kill it with a small loss by spending enough ammunition. But the apocalypse-level beast, even if it was outside the range of the spatial interference, the destruction it caused was still unimaginable. If it was within the range of the spatial interference, it would be an almost invincible existence. It would bring apocalyptic fear and despair to any battlefield it appeared on. Soon, the image on the screen changed to the duel between Tsing Hui and the apocalypse-level beast. When they saw Tsing Hui cut the apocalypse-level beast in half with one sword, several of the dozens of counselors present could not help but stand up at the same time. A few of them were so excited that they slammed the table and shouted, "Good! Good kill! Killing an apocalypse-level beast with one sword! Amazing! Amazing! Really amazing! It can't be wrong. This young man named Tsing Hui definitely has the ability to surpass the apocalypse level. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to kill an apocalypse-level beast with one sword. I didn't expect that humans can really reach this level with their own physique. At present, the reason why we don't dare to enter the range of the space interference to counterattack is that we can't fight against apocalypse-level beasts. Now that such a powerful martial artist has appeared on our human side, doesn't that mean that we can make Tsing Hui turn into a sword and push through the space channels one by one? The counselors discussed for a moment and quickly thought of the benefits of Tsing Hui's appearance to the current stalemate of the Earth Federation. Let Tsing Hui turn into a sword. However, it won't be easy to make Tsing Hui completely obey our orders. Everyone, please watch the 4th video. Jiang Kunlun said in a deep voice. The screen projected Tsing Hui, the Hornless Dragon Squad, and the others who were surrounded by a sea of beasts. Through the screen, everyone could clearly see how ferocious and terrifying the beasts surrounding them were. There are actually so many apocalypse-level beasts. There are also a large number of annihilation-level and disaster-level beasts. Oh my God, fortunately, these beasts didn't rush out in one breath. Otherwise, the defensive facilities of the Jade Ocean Fortress would definitely not be able to withstand them. The space channel of the Jade Ocean province is much more dangerous than we imagined. Everyone, it seems that we have to increase the military budget of the Jade Ocean Fortress. Looking at the sea of beasts surrounding Tsing Hui and the Hornless Dragon Squad, the counselors' expressions suddenly became solemn. However, Jiang Kunlun did not mention increasing the budget at all. Instead, he said with a solemn expression, "Everyone, please open your eyes and watch carefully." Chapter 7:16. Mental Storm. What appeared on the screen next was naturally Tsing Hui's mental storm, which could only be called an ordinary secret mental technique in the Xia Empire. On the screen, Tsing Hui instantly leaped out and shot into the void. The speed that erupted in that instant was simply unbelievably fast. Even with a high-speed camera, they could only vaguely capture a shadow. Then, a burst of static came from the camera equipment. This static lasted for less than 3 seconds before it resumed, causing the members of the parliament to frown. However, before they could make any comments, they were immediately stunned by the eerily quiet environment around them. This was especially so when the image turned in all directions, showing the corpses of the extremely powerful disaster grade, annihilation grade, and apocalyptic grade ferocious beasts. Many of the members of parliament seemed to have understood something at the same time, and their expressions changed drastically. Dead, dead. All the ferocious beasts are dead. Other than death, there's no other way to make these brutal biological weapons so quiet. What method did he use just now to make all these ferocious beasts die at the same time? Even the apocalyptic grade ferocious beasts that can destroy cities outside the spatial interference range are among them. This was done by Tsinghui alone. One by one, the members of parliament stood up, and over 10 of them could not help but ask at the same time. Jiang Kunlun clearly understood everyone's reaction and attitude. Very quickly, he placed a set of data on the screen. This is the damage caused by Tsinghui's killer move just now. I reckon that many of you know the name of this killer move and have some understanding of it. We call this killer move martial will. The static earlier was actually the life magnetic field that formed the martial will, which interfered with the electronic image, causing the camera to record to be blank. As Jiang Kunlun spoke, someone posted the detailed data of the effects caused by the mental storm. After seeing the effects caused by Tsinghui's mental storm, the members of the parliament, who had been shouting in disbelief, suddenly lost their voices. How is this possible? All the living creatures within a radius of 13 kilometers have been wiped out. Even a nuclear bomb with a weight of 10 million tons can't do much more than this. Can one really reach such a level when the martial will is cultivated to the extreme? After a long while, suppressed voices with a hint of astonishment rang out from the silent crowd. The attack of the martial will is clearly carried out indiscriminately. This is the instantaneous speed that Sword Saint Tsinghui achieved when he left the Hornless Dragon Squad when he manifested his will. According to the experts' detailed estimation, it's 5-6 times the speed of sound. This speed, and a killer move that can annihilate everything within a radius of 13 kilometers. Marshal, does our Earth's Federation have any means to keep him in check? I'd like to say yes, but the truth is very regretful. After Jiang Kunlun finished speaking, he waved his hand again and got someone to project a set of data. This is a model that I've immediately gotten people to gather information on Sword Saint Tsinghui's personality, thinking, behavior, and other data. Tsinghui isn't someone who abides by the rules. If we want to judge, influence, or even control him using ordinary standards such as morality, duty, good, and evil, it's just wishful thinking. It's also very difficult to rely on moral coercion, human duty, and other elements to make him serve our Wuxia parliament. Fortunately, through the research of our expert team, we've found 2 of his weaknesses. The first is the daughter of the Dongyang Sword Sect master, Jiang Ningji, whom he asked the military, the local government, and the Martial Arts Association to do everything they can to find her. She's his senior sister, and it's obvious that she's also someone he admires. Unfortunately, due to the actions of some people, she had no choice but to conceal her identity. I've heard about this matter. Although the actions of the Dongyang Sword Sect back then were a little extreme, it was still pardonable. I've already asked someone to reverse the case and remove the arrest warrant for the fugitive disciple of the Dongyang Sword Sect. At the same time, I've also investigated the members of the Yi and Huang families who used their power to bully others. However, the direct parties of the 2 families have died due to the spatial distortion in Mount Dongyang, so we can only start from the side. Great Governor Hunyuan spoke slowly, expressing his attitude. Ran Donglai, the president of the Martial Arts Association, also said, the Martial Arts Association will definitely fully cooperate with the Great Governor to investigate this matter. Okay. Hunyuan nodded. At this time, Jiang Kunlun spoke again. Jiang Ningji's matter was partly due to luck, and we obviously can't be so passive. Fortunately, there is a second plan, and that is Tsinghui's father, Qin Yuming. As far as I know, Qin Yiming has a lot of weight in Xing Hui's heart. The first thing he did when he suddenly appeared in Mount Dongyang was to contact his father, which shows his filial piety. Therefore, if we want to tie Xing Hui to our war chariot, we might as well spend more effort on Qin Yiming. LV Zhongyuan obviously had the most right to speak about the people in the civil service system, so he immediately took over Jiang Kunlun's topic. I've already learned about this matter in detail. As far as I know, Qin Yiming is very capable in governance and is also very conscientious towards the hundreds of millions of people in the Wuxia region. When the disaster of the dire beasts swept through Yuhai province, he didn't even have time to take care of his wife and still stayed on the front line of his post. We should make an exception for such a good comrade. Therefore, I propose that we add Qin Yiming's name to the list of new members of the next high-level meeting. As soon as LV Zhongyuan finished speaking, he immediately received everyone's approval. After learning about the terrifying strength that Xing Hui had displayed, all the members already understood that this was a factor that could not be suppressed or controlled by violence. This was because he alone had the ability to fight against the entire world. Under such circumstances, if they wanted to tie Xing Hui to their worship, the only way was to find a way to check and balance him from the side. Xing Hui was not easy to control, but Qin Yiming was an exception. As long as they let Qin Yiming join their team and tie him to their war chariot, how could Xing Hui stay out of it? Moreover, as long as the methods were reasonable and satisfied both sides, they would definitely be able to create a win-win situation in the end. Since everyone has no objections, then I'll add him to the list of candidates. Yes, the few of us can decide on the list of candidates. Jiang Kunlun nodded and then moved on to the next topic. Next, we have to discuss how to use Xing Hui's strength to counterattack, eliminate the many dire beasts in Yuhai province, and recover the lost land of Yuhai province. This is a grand battle plan. Xing Hui naturally did not know what the final result of the meeting would be. At this moment, he had already returned to the room that Jiang Kunlun had arranged for him. Sitting on the edge of the bed, looking around at the spotless high-class suite, Xing Hui was at a loss for no reason. The world of Earth, he had finally returned. The goal that he had fought for 13 years in Heaven Wasteland world had finally been achieved. However, when he really returned to the world of Earth, he did not feel too much joy of reuniting with his family. In the depths of his heart, there was an indescribable loneliness. This loneliness and torment made him have an extremely strong urge to find someone to talk to. But, when he carefully thought about it, he silently realized that whether it was the world of Earth or Heaven Wasteland world, there was no one that he could talk to in the depths of his heart. Xing Hui sat on the bed, speechless for a long time. Maintaining this silence, he sat for an entire night. It was only when the light of dawn sprinkled down from the darkness of the second day that he raised his head slightly. There was a faint loneliness in his eyes. Where there is peace of mind is home. But, where would his heart, which was floating with the waves, be at peace? For a moment, many images emerged in Xing Hui's mind. His parents, relatives, and friends. These people were from Earth, and there were also people from the divine wasteland world. Many images were constantly intertwined, and gradually, only his parents, senior sister Jiang Ningji, and the scene of him and sword master Bai Heng discussing the sword of the glorious sun, and the sword of the blazing sun. Gradually, the image of his mother faded away. Then, the image of his father also slowly froze at the scene of him hugging Qin Yusen and coaxing her gently, while on the other side, Hai Tang and Harry Wire stood on both sides. The scene dissipated. In the end, there was only the image of him entering the East Sun Sword School for the first time, looking at the beautiful figure dancing with the sword, and the white-robed sword master who was like an immortal from the ninth heaven and whose sword whistled in all directions. The two images, the two figures intertwined, and for a moment he could not tell who was who. Dong dong dong. There was a slight knock on the door. When Xing Hui came back to his senses, he found that it was already dark outside. Looking at the time, it was already 9:21 in the morning. Xing Hui tidied himself up a little and went out the door. The people waiting outside were Jiang Xingdao, who had accompanied him to the Jade Sea Spatial Passage, and the Chief Secretary of the Great Consul, Shi Chui. Sorry to keep you waiting. Xing Hui had already restrained his mind, and outsiders did not see anything unusual. We just arrived. Sword Saint Xing Hui, how did you rest last night? Not bad. Sword Saint Xing Hui, we have already quickly collected the information you asked us to collect and organized it in the Sky River Model 10 supercomputer. Because of the large number and the spatial interference, I'm afraid that Sword Saint Xing Hui will need to change cities to receive the data steadily. Jiang Xingdao said with a bitter smile, our Jade Sea Fortress is too close to the spatial passage. Xing Hui nodded. The closer to the spatial passage, the more serious the spatial interference. He had already felt this. But at present, he really did not have a way to destroy the spatial passage. Let's go to ancient Jade City. It doesn't matter which city it is. Xing Hui said. Last time, because of his emotional imbalance, he did not have time to give away the flower of no falling. This time, he went to ancient Jade City to collect the information, and also to help his father Qing Yiming swallow the flower of no falling. Okay, then let's go to ancient Jade City. I'll have someone send the things there. Jiang Xingdao nodded without hesitation. Xing Hui nodded. Finally, after a moment of silence, he asked again, my senior sister. Is there any news? This. Due to the inconvenience of communication, Miss Jiang Ningji may not have received the news that you are trying to find her. But don't worry, we have used all our power and will definitely find her in a few days. Okay. Xing Hui did not say anything else. Chapter 717. Ancient Jade City. This time, it was Jiang Kunlun and Shi Chui who accompanied Xing Hui on his return. Due to the arrival of a fighter jet, they arrived at the airport outside ancient Jade City before 11 o'clock. It was not even 11:30 when they entered ancient Jade City. Sword Saint of Green Ruins, the research center in the ancient Jade City has already received the data from the Heavenly River, and the latest equipment will be delivered here very soon. However, due to the sheer amount of information, it's far too messy, and it's far too complicated to go through all of it in a short amount of time. Do you want me to specially prepare a team to assist you? Shi Chui asked as she led Xing Hui to the research center. One had to know that this matter was related to whether or not humans could close the space channel with their own ability and solve the threat of the extraterrestrial civilization on the other side of the space channel once and for all. Whether it was the local government, the military, or the martial arts association, all of them attached great importance to this matter. You can send a team over, but I need experts and scholars who have studied Wuxia. No, not just Wuxia, but all of the myths and legends in detail. Understood, I'll go ask for instructions now. A team of experts will be here soon. Shi Chui immediately agreed when she heard this. Xing Hui nodded. After pondering for a moment, he seemed to have thought of something and added, also, I need you to help me set up a physics research center. I need top astrologers and physicists to help me deduce the evolution of the sun. Deduce the evolution of the sun? Yes, this is my personal request. Shi Chui did not feel embarrassed when she heard this. Instead, she was a little happy. Okay, Sword Saint Xing Hui, don't worry. We'll go and apply for it now. We promise to use the best equipment and the best researchers to complete the task given by you, Sword Saint Xing Hui. According to what the higher-ups of the parliament knew about Xing Hui did not have high requirements for material things, especially at his level. In this case, what they were most afraid of was Xing Hui's lack of desire. Now that they had a request, not only would the higher-ups feel that Xing Hui was more humane, but they could also establish a relationship with him. As long as there was a relationship, they would have the confidence to use Xing Hui's power to suppress and pacify the situation when some place was in danger. Sword Saint Tsing Hui, as you don't have an identity, it will be very inconvenient for you to conduct research outside research. To avoid unnecessary trouble, we have suggested to the Parliament to invite you to be a new member of the Parliament and the honorary Vice President of our research center. What do you think? As long as it doesn't affect my time, you can arrange it. Tsing Hui naturally knew the nature of the honorary Vice President, so he did not refuse. Okay, we understand. We will definitely not affect Dean Tsing Hui because of this position. Shi Chui thought that she would have to spend some time persuading Tsing Hui to join them, but she did not expect things to go so smoothly. She was overjoyed. Jiang Xingdao saw this and struck while the iron was hot. He also made an invitation. Sword Saint Tsing Hui, your strength has already exceeded the limits of the current human and even the dire beasts. The military is also planning to add a new identity for you. This identity is currently a lieutenant general. Although it is not high, Sword Saint Tsing Hui does not need to follow the military's rules. Moreover, I believe that with Sword Saint Tsing Hui's many contributions to the human race, it is only a matter of time before you are promoted to general or even marshal. With this identity, even if Sword Saint Tsing Hui is in a rush and there is no time for a fighter jet to pick you up, you can still rush there at the fastest speed without causing any misunderstandings on the way. Okay. Qing Su nodded. It was indeed a good idea that running at full speed would not lead to any misunderstandings from the local garrison. He did not wish to cause a ruckus due to misunderstandings from the garrison when he needed to travel. The vehicle soon arrived at the research center. Outside the research center, there were already people waiting there. Among these waiting people, there were not only the people in charge of the research center, but also the city lord of Guyu City, Feng Bo Ping, who had received the news. Seeing Tsing Hui and the others coming down, Feng Bo Ping immediately led the people of the research center to greet them. Welcome, Secretary Shi. Welcome General Jiang to our Guyu City for inspection. Shi Chui glanced at Feng Bo Ping. Although they did not deliberately keep their visit a secret, they did not specifically inform others. They only informed the people of the research center when they boarded the fighter jet. He did not expect that in such a short time, Feng Bo Ping had received the news and brought people here to greet them. It seemed that his control of Guyu City was very strong. Thinking this, Shi Chui did not dare to take the lead. Instead, he said, City Lord Feng, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you for the next period of time. After that, he moved aside and immediately invited Tsing Hui out. City Lord Feng, let me introduce you. This is Dean Tsing Hui. He will be responsible for the work arrangements of the research center, and the relevant personnel and equipment will be completed one by one soon. Feng Bo Ping saw that Shi Chui had taken the initiative to move aside and revealed his attitude towards Tsing Hui. His expression could not help but change slightly. He immediately stepped forward and enthusiastically shook hands with Tsing Hui. Dean Tsing Hui, it's really an honor for Guyu City to have you come to guide the research work of Guyu City. I believe that under your leadership, Guyu City will soon have results that will shock the entire Federation. Jiang Xingdao could not help but sneer when he heard Feng Bo Ping's words. Feng Bo Ping did not know the true identity of Tsing Hui at all. He was only here to flatter him. But it made sense. Tsing Hui's identity was basically only known by the hundreds of people at the high-level meeting. As for the people who knew about it, with Feng Bo Ping's status as the city lord of Guyu City, he obviously did not have the qualifications to step into the high-level meeting and become one of the hundreds of people. Well, gather everyone. I'll go and assign tasks. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, he seemed to be aware of something. His eyes suddenly fell on a beautiful woman who had followed Dean Kubi to greet him. She had a tall and slender figure, a beautiful face, and a much plainer outfit. It was Haitong's daughter, Hai Wire. However, at this moment, this young lady's gaze was filled with suppressed shock when she looked at Tsing Hui. Even if she tried to force herself to calm down, she was still unable to maintain her usual confidence and composure. After learning about Tsing Hui's shocking identity, Feng Bo-ping, who had been observing Tsing Hui's reaction to make up for his mistake earlier, suddenly understood something when he saw Tsing Hui's gaze fall on Hai Wire. He revealed a meaningful smile and suggested, "This must be Miss Hai Wire, the deputy leader of Dr. Bai Li's electromagnetic research team, right? Miss Hai Wire's research team is the largest team in our research institute. Not only do they have many elite soldiers, but their equipment is also the most advanced in our Guyu City Research Institute. Why don't Miss Hai Wire bring Dean Tsing Hui to take a look? See if there are any facilities and personnel that need to be added." "Sure." Tsing Hui looked at Hai Wire and nodded nonchalantly. Naturally, he would not hold a grudge against this mother and daughter because of the matter with Hai Tang and Hai Wire. It did not matter to him who was leading the way. "All right, the others can leave for now. Dean Kubi, Miss Hai Wire, and I will accompany you," Feng Bo-ping said with a smile. Feng Bo-ping said with a smile. At the same time, he added, "It's almost lunchtime now. We've already prepared a banquet. When the tour is almost over, I'd like to invite Dean Ching Su, Secretary Shi, and General Jiang for a meal. Do you have time? Dean Tsing Hui, what do you think?" Shi Chui and Jiang Xingdao did not hesitate to let Tsing Hui make the decision. This scene immediately made Feng Fengping's heart tremble. He had no idea when such a great figure had appeared in the Wuxia region. Even Councilman Shi and General Jiang of the high-level council had to act according to his wishes. Noon. Tsing Hui planned to meet Qin Yiming at noon. However, considering that if he really went at noon, Qin Yiming would definitely ask him to stay for a meal. At that time, it would be awkward for him to face Hai Tang, so he waved his hand and said, "Then you arrange it." After receiving Tsing Hui's signal, Feng Bo-ping quickly said, "Good, good, good. Our ancient Jade City has some achievements in the field of food, especially Miss Hai Wire's Love Pavilion. The dishes are the best in our ancient Jade City. When the time comes, Dean Tsing Hui will definitely be satisfied." After saying that, he immediately turned to Hai Wire and said, "Miss Hai Wire, I'm here to get business for you. When the time comes, I'll definitely ask Love Pavilion to bring out the best dishes and let Dean Tsing Hui eat to his heart's content." Hai Wire looked at Tsing Hui, and her pretty face was a little embarrassed. However, she could not refuse Feng Bo-ping's request. After all, there were only two people in the Hai family who could suppress Feng Bo-ping. She had to give face to such a small matter and said, "Don't worry, Mayor. I'll call back and arrange it." That's good, that's good." As Feng Bo-ping said that, he seemed to have thought of Qin Yiming's inexplicable promotion to the position of speaker. He guessed that Qin Yiming must have a strong background. Out of the intention of helping and befriending him, he laughed again and said, "In fact, Dean Tsing Hui's surname is Qing. In our ancient Jade City, there is a very capable deputy city lord with the surname Qing, and his name is Qin Yiming. Maybe 500 years ago, he was from the same family as Dean Tsing Hui. Moreover, the Hai family that Love Pavilion belongs to also has some relationship with Qin Yiming City Lord. When the time comes, I'll call him over to propose a toast to Dean Tsing Hui." Shi Chui's mouth twitched when she heard that. She was about to be embarrassed. However, Jiang Xingdao was not as calm as Shi Chui. Knowing Tsing Hui's family, he could not help but laugh and said, Lord Feng, you're really funny." General Jiang, why do you say that?" Feng Bo-ping was still a little confused. "You're in charge of the same city as Qin Yiming City Lord. Don't tell me you don't know the family members of Qin Yiming City Lord." "Family members of Qin Yiming City Lord?" Feng Bo-ping naturally knew the composition of Qin Yiming's family. He was the son-in-law of the Hai family, and his wife was the fifth miss of the Hai family, Hai Tang. He had two daughters, one was Hai Wire, and the other was Qin Yusen. However, with Jiang Xingdao's reminder, coupled with Qin Yiming's sudden promotion to chairman of the local council and Qin Su's age, he immediately thought of something with his extremely quick reactions. His eyes widened abruptly. General Jiang, don't tell me. Jiang Xingdao nodded. Qin Yiming City Lord is Tsing Hui's father. At this time, Shi Chui also said to Tsing Hui, Dean Tsing Hui, I heard that Qin Yiming has been promoted to the 5th Speaker of Guyu City. This is a good thing worth celebrating. You are now in Guyu City. Do you want to invite him over? That's good. Let's congratulate him on this matter. If he was not at home, Tsing Hui naturally did not mind meeting with Qin Yiming. After all, that was his father. In addition, when he heard Shi Chui mention this matter, he more or less understood what they meant. He nodded, okay, but let me contact him. Chapter 7:18 Love Pavilion. Qin Yiming was very happy to know that his son wanted to treat him to a meal. Although he did not show it on the surface, it was the steadiness that a parent should have. However, in reality, before it was time to eat, he had hurried over. The only thing that made him a little uneasy was that when he picked up the phone, Hai Tang, who was at home, happened to hear it. When she found out that it was Love Pavilion, Hai Tang used the excuse that she did not need to spend too much money to go over. However, considering the change in mood of Hai Mingwei's brother-in-law yesterday and the change in attitude of the Hai family during the meal, he felt a little more confident in his heart. He might be able to take advantage of this opportunity to ease the relationship between Tsing Hui and Hai Tang, and let him gradually accept Hai Tang and the family be harmonious. Hai Tang, when you see Tsing Hui later, I still hope that you can show the magnanimity of an elder and not be angry with him. When he brought Hai Tang to Love Pavilion, Qin Yiming worriedly reminded her. Brother Yiming, don't worry. A few days ago, I was a little annoyed because of Xin's crying. That's why I was a little rude to little Su. This time, I will pay attention. Hai Tang nodded slightly. That's good. Qin Yiming nodded and quickly went up to Love Pavilion with Hai Tang. They came to a small courtyard that was separated by Love Pavilion. However, on the way to the small courtyard, the manager whispered to Hai Tang, Director Hai, City Lord Feng is also in Love Pavilion, and there are 3 important people with him. 2 of them are the famous and powerful legendary Marshal Saint General Jiang Xingdao, and the Great Consul's direct subordinate, Ma Shi. Secretary Shi is currently accompanied by City Lord Feng, Miss Hai Wire, and our ancient Jade City Research Institute's Dean Ku Bi. City Lord Feng, General Jiang, and Secretary Shi. Great Consul's Secretary Shi. Hearing the manager's whisper, Hai Tang's well-maintained face could not help but reveal a shocked expression. Why did these important people suddenly come to our ancient Jade City? We did not receive any news beforehand, and even the ecliptic main city did not receive any news. These important figures should have suddenly come to our ancient Jade City for some private matter and did not go through the proper procedures. City Lord Feng is also well informed, so he immediately came to welcome and entertain them. Wait. Didn't little Su just invite us to have a meal in the Friendship Pavilion? But now, there are actually so many important figures in the Friendship Pavilion and even City Lord has to accompany them at the side. This. Could little Su have made a mistake? Qin Yiming, who was at the side, immediately stopped in his tracks. Hai Tang was also a little hesitant. She obviously didn't think that Tsing Hui was qualified to chat with the likes of Shi Chui and Jiang Xingdao, who stood at the top of the Wuxia region. Then. I'll send a message to ask. Also, I heard that Wei is here too. I'm also sending a message to Wei to see why these big shots suddenly came to our ancient Jade City. If you can establish a relationship with these big shots, your future path will definitely be smoother. Okay, I'll make the call now. As Qin Yiming spoke, he had already taken out his mobile phone. But before he was ready to make the call, he saw Feng Ping, the city lord of ancient Jade City, coming out of the courtyard. When he saw Qin Yiming, who was hesitating outside, he immediately greeted him with a face full of smiles. Brother Yiming, you're finally here. We've been waiting for you. Come in quickly. That degree of enthusiasm was even greater than when Qin Yiming became the fifth deputy speaker a few days ago. Even under Qin Yiming's somewhat puzzled gaze, he saw a trace of fawning in the city lord's eyes. This City Lord Feng. Little Su is inside? Qin Yiming asked somewhat uncertainly. Little Su? Feng Fengping was slightly taken aback, but soon understood that he was talking about Tsing Hui. For a big shot like Tsing Hui, they had to respectfully address him as Dean. But Qin Yiming was Tsing Hui's father, so it was reasonable to call him Little Su. He immediately laughed out loud. Dean Tsing Hui is naturally inside. Have you forgotten that he called you? Today, Dean Tsing Hui is the protagonist of all of us. Come in, you'll know when you come in. After that, he looked at Hai Tang again and said with a smile, Mrs. Hai Tang is also here, and Hai Wire is also inside. Please, come in. As he spoke, he pulled Qin Yiming inside without any explanation. His enthusiasm made Hai Tang and Qin Yiming somewhat at a loss. Especially the way Feng Fengping addressed Tsing Hui. Dean. When did Tsing Hui become a dean? Moreover, what kind of dean was this dean? With doubts and puzzlement, the two finally stepped into the small courtyard with Feng Fengping. When they arrived at the small courtyard, Feng Fengping and Hai Tang's eyes immediately fell on the legendary Jiang Xingdao and his secretary Shi Chui, who followed the great governor and had appeared on TV more than once. They hurried forward to greet them, but before he had time to speak, Shi Chui and Jiang Xingdao had already stood up and said with a smile, "This is City Lord Qin Yiming, who taught such an outstanding talent as Dean Tsing Hui, right? During this period of time, we have heard of City Lord Qin's name for a long time. Now we finally meet you in person. Today, we must toast to City Lord Qin and thank you for teaching such a legendary figure as Dean Tsing Hui, who led the entire human civilization to a new chapter." A legendary figure who led the entire human civilization to a new chapter. Hearing the title that Jiang Xingdao and Shi Chui gave Tsing Hui, Qin Yiming was slightly stunned. However, since the two leaders had spoken, he had no time to think about it. He hurriedly said, "You are too polite. I should be the one toasting to you. If Tsing Hui has done anything wrong during this period of time, please forgive me." Jiang Xingdao and Shi Chui's expressions were strange. They wanted to tell Qin Yiming the truth, but there were still unrelated people like Feng Fengping, Hai Tang, and Kubi present. Before the high-level meeting figured out what direction and angle to introduce Tsing Hui to the world, they really couldn't say too much to avoid violating the rules. At the moment, they could only try their best to be polite and chat with Qin Yiming and his wife. As for Qin Yiming and his wife, when they faced important figures like Shi Chui and Jiang Xingdao, they treated them as if they were deputy department-level officials, or even deputy national-level leaders. They carefully accompanied them. Overall, it seemed that both sides were having a pleasant conversation. "Hai Tang, what's going on?" While her husband Qin Yiming was chatting and laughing with Shi Chui, Jiang Xingdao, and other important figures that the entire Hai family had to try their best to curry favor with, Hai Tang quietly sat beside Hai Wire and asked in a low voice. In fact, Hai Tang wasn't much better than Hai Tang. Until now, she still hadn't figured out what had happened. She just secretly shook her head. "Mother, I don't know either, but, this Tsing Hui, seems to be very impressive." After saying that, she secretly glanced at the sword case beside Tsing Hui. "Brother Tsing Hui should be a warrior, right? But this time, he came to our ancient Jade City as the Vice President of the Wuxia Research Institute." Vice President of the Wuxia Research Institute? Hai Tang couldn't help but widen her eyes. The Wuxia Scientific Research Institute was a department directly under the jurisdiction of the Wuxia Prefectural Administration. Every single dean was someone who could enter the upper echelons of the society. They were existences on the same level as Hai Dongsheng, who currently held the highest status in the Hai family. Qing Su. A son who Qin Yiming had just brought home a few days ago, who looked quite down and out, actually had such an amazing identity. Haitang, you can't be joking, right? Haitang glanced at Jiang Xingdao and Shi Chui, who looked like they were accompanying her. Mother, you can't be thinking that these two important figures are also joking like us, right? After hearing that, Haitang finally understood. When Qin Yiming originally had a slim chance of competing for the position of chairman of the ancient Jade City, the higher-ups suddenly ordered him to directly become the 5th chairman. Moreover, Councilman Guan even promised that as long as he performed well, it wouldn't be impossible for him to enter the Supreme Parliament in the future. At that time, she still felt that it was a bit unbelievable. Now that she saw the attitude of Shi Chui and Jiang Xingdao, these two high-level councilmen, there was an 80% to 90% chance that this was all thanks to Tsing Hui. It seems that Tsing Hui must have made great contributions in the research institute. Even Secretary Shi and General Jiang value him so much. Could it be that he has developed a device to prevent spatial interference, or even a method to close spatial channels? Haitang was shocked. Tsing Hui had disappeared for more than 10 years. If he was working in the research institute, due to confidentiality requirements, this was completely within the scope of a cleanup. After thinking about the cause and effect of this matter, Haitang suddenly regretted her attitude 2 days ago. If she hadn't been so rude and had been more polite back then, with the cooperation of the Qin family and the Hai family, and with the great influence that Tsing Hui had formed at this moment, some of the high-level members of the Hai family would have very likely advanced further in the Wuxia region. During this meal, everyone had different thoughts. Fortunately, overall, the atmosphere was quite lively. As he needed to give the unfalling flower to Qin Yiming, after the meal, Tsing Hui called for Qin Yiming alone and went with him to another room in the courtyard. When they reached that room, Qin Yiming, who was still a bit dizzy from drinking, couldn't help but immediately ask, "Little Su, what's going on? I heard Secretary Shi call you Dean Tsing Hui, and Marshal Sage Jiang Xingdao calls you General Tsing Hui. What have you been doing for the past 13 years? Could it be that you have been researching some top-secret information in the research institute? This matter is hard to explain. You can just think of it as me carrying out top-secret research in the research institute." As Tsing Hui spoke, he took out the unfalling flower. "Father, you should consume this now." After a moment, he glanced at the unfalling flower in his hand. Thinking that his father was just a mortal, he could only say again, "Consume one petal at a time first. If there are any abnormalities, stop immediately. Wait until everything returns to normal before consuming it." Qin Yiming looked at the unfalling flower in Tsing Hui's hand. Although he didn't know what it was, out of his trust in Tsing Hui, he still nodded without hesitation. "Just consume it raw. Just consume it raw. All right." Qin Yiming plucked a petal from the unfalling flower and swallowed it. Chapter 719. The unfalling flower could extend one's lifespan by 1,000 years. Although 1,000 years was only an imaginary number, as long as one did not torture one's body, it was not difficult to live for 600 to 700 years. Tsing Hui was letting Qin Yiming consume the unfalling flower petal by petal. Although the effect would be weakened, the burden on the body of an ordinary person was much smaller. Even so, when Qin Yiming consumed the unfalling flower petal, he still felt his entire body turn red. A vigorous force burned in his body like a raging flame, almost turning his body into ashes from the inside out. After all, this was the unfalling flower that was sold for nearly 200 Taoist rhymes. Those who were able to consume such treasures, even if they were the so-called ordinary people, were basically at the Golden Core realm. Even if they were the close relatives of powerful existences, under the accumulation of heavenly treasures, these ordinary people would more or less have a decent cultivation base. Perhaps they would not be able to reach the vision domain, but it would not be difficult for them to charge into the awakening and true Qi realms. With such a foundation, there would naturally not be any news of them being unable to withstand the medicinal power of the unfalling flower after consuming it. However, Qin Yiming was an out-and-out ordinary person. Even if he paid attention to training himself, his level was not even comparable to the most ordinary low-level warrior. Consuming a petal of the unfalling flower immediately made him suffer unbearable pain. Fortunately, Tsing Hui was beside him. Under Tsing Hui's guidance, the medicinal power of the unfalling flower was evenly distributed to every corner of his body and was quickly digested. As a result, although Qin Yiming was in pain, he still managed to endure it. An hour later, the medicinal power of the unfalling flower petal gradually dissipated. Qin Yiming, whose entire body was red, also let out a long sigh of relief. The blazing feeling of being thrown into a steamer almost made him think that he was going to die. Fortunately, he managed to endure it. Once the medicinal power was over, Qin Yiming immediately felt the changes in his body. He was already in his 50s, but he felt as if his body had been reborn, returning to the time when he was the youngest in his 20s. His body seemed to have an endless supply of strength and spirit. "Little Sue, what kind of elixir is this? It's so magical." Even though Qin Yiming had always been steady, such a strange thing happened to his body. He could not help but size up his body. "It's just a miraculous item that can prolong one's life." As Tsing Hui spoke, he stared at Qin Yiming for a moment and said, "Father, you'd better go wash up." Qin Yiming also felt that his body was a little sticky and immediately nodded. The Love Pavilion was the property of the Fair family, and the courtyard they were in belonged to the top area. Naturally, there was a bathroom there. After Qin Yiming went to take a bath, Tsing Hui also came out from inside. At this time, Feng Bo Ping, Shi Chui, and Kubi had already left. It was said that the first batch of research equipment had arrived, and they had to go and verify it. However, Jiang Kunlun, Hai Tang, and Hai Tang were still chatting and waiting. Seeing Tsing Hui come out, the three stood up at the same time. Dean Tsing Hui, you and the city lord of Qin Yiming City have not seen each other for more than 10 years. It seems like you have endless things to talk about." Jiang Xingdao laughed. "It's all my fault. If it weren't for my inappropriate words 2 days ago, Tsing Hui and Yiming would be able to have a good long talk these days. Tsing Hui, I apologize to you." At this time, Hai Tang behaved quite like a daughter of a big family. She admitted her mistake 2 days ago with a guilty face. Considering that Hai Tang and Qin Yiming were husband and wife after all, and even gave birth to a daughter, Qin Yusen, Tsing Hui did not want to be entangled in this issue. He immediately nodded, "You're too polite. I didn't take this matter to heart." Hai Tang heard the alienation in Tsing Hui's words, but she understood that to repair the relationship between them was not something that could be done overnight. However, with Qin Yiming as an intermediary, there would be a day when the two of them could be as close as a family. Hai Tang is a member of the Research Institute. Tsing Hui, when you arrive at the Research Institute, if you need someone to help you, just let Hai Tang do it. Brother Yiming and I are fated to be together. From this point of view, you and Hai Tang are like brother and sister. I hope you can get along well with each other. After all, everything will prosper if the family is harmonious. After Hai Tang finished speaking, she turned to look at Hai Tang. At this time, Hai Tang also stepped forward unnaturally and called out, "Brother Tsing Hui." Tsing Hui nodded and said calmly, "If Hai Tang is capable, I will use her again." He did not call her sister. When this scene landed in the eyes of Hai Tang, who had always been a little arrogant and was used to being surrounded and worshipped as a goddess, she naturally felt wronged. However, when she thought of the terrifying power Tsing Hui had displayed today, even though she felt wronged, she did not dare to show it in the slightest. Amidst the somewhat awkward atmosphere, nearly half an hour passed by very quickly. At this time, Qin Yiming had finally finished washing up and came in from outside. When they saw Qin Yiming, who was at least 20 years younger, walk into the room, Hai Tang, Jiang Xingdao, Hai Tang, and the rest in the room were all stunned on the spot. Even Hai Tang, who was his wife, seemed to not be able to recognize Qin Yiming for a moment. She called out in a tone of disbelief, "Brother. Brother Yiming?" Qin Yiming had obviously looked in the mirror and knew what he looked like now. His expression was also somewhat awkward. Hai Tang, immediately after, he turned to Tsing Hui and did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Little Su, what exactly did you give me to consume? Why did my appearance change so much?" Tsing Hui looked at Qin Yiming, who was in front of him, and said with a smile, "Isn't it good to be younger? But how am I supposed to meet people and deal with my work in this state?" "That's easy. Just find a makeup artist and put on some makeup. You just have to make yourself look like you're in your 40s. The departments below will just think that you look radiant during this period of time and won't think too much about it. That's the only way." Qin Yiming smiled bitterly. "This. What exactly is going on? Dean Tsing Hui, could it be that you've mastered the art of rejuvenation?" Jiang Xingdao stared at Qin Yiming, dumbfounded, and then turned to ask Tsing Hui. Even Haitang's eyes lit up a lot. No woman could resist the temptation of rejuvenation and eternal youth. "It's just a kind of spiritual item of heaven and earth," Tsing Hui said. "The trouble brought by your spiritual item of heaven and earth did not just make my appearance look younger. My body seems to have changed as well. It seems that I have great strength. When I was bathing just now, I broke a door latch in a shower," Qin Yiming said and clenched his hand. As he clenched his hand, a stream of air rapidly contracted with his palm as the center, and it actually produced a faint, muffled air explosion. Seeing this scene, Jiang Xingdao, who was already in disbelief at Qin Yiming's youthful appearance, was suddenly shocked, condensing qi into a ball. "This is a warrior sage. This is the strength of a warrior sage. Your physique has actually reached the level of a warrior sage." The physique of a warrior sage was actually equivalent to the blood-changing realm of the 6 mortal realms. The immortal flower was a treasure worth nearly 200 Taoist rhymes. It was reasonable for it to have this additional ability when it could prolong one's life. Tsing Hui estimated that after Qin Yiming consumed the entire immortal flower, the strength of his physique should be able to reach the awakening realm. Of course, the additional effect of strengthening one's physique to the awakening realm was nothing to any cultivator who could afford the immortal flower. However, for the warriors on Earth, it was almost a miracle for a person's physique to reach the awakening realm in an extremely short period of time. It should be known that with the physique of an awakening realm, in addition to many alloy sabers, excellent equipment, and powerful combat skills, a human with the physique of an awakening realm was already enough to fight against a lord-level dire beast. This was also the reason why Jiang Xingdao was shocked when he saw Qin Yiming, an ordinary person, possess such a strong physique in more than an hour. "What's going on? What's going on? Dean Tsing Hui, what did you guys talk about inside just now? Spiritual item of heaven and earth? What kind of spiritual item of heaven and earth can make an ordinary person possess the physique of a warrior sage in less than 2 hours? If such a spiritual item of heaven and earth can be researched and promoted, the entire warrior world will usher in unprecedented glory. Since it's a spiritual item of heaven and earth, its value is immeasurable. This kind of treasure can't be promoted." Tsing Hui shook his head without hesitation. What kind of spiritual item of heaven and earth is this? Dean Tsing Hui, can you take some out and let the people of the Research Institute study it? It's impossible for them to study it. Tsing Hui said. The value of an immortal flower was usually around 180 Taoist rhymes, and an immortal flower only had 5 to 6 petals. In other words, an immortal flower usually required 30 Taoist rhymes. 30 Taoist rhymes. In the infinite wasteland world, it was easy to buy the life of some true energy realm or even transcendent realm experts. Dean Tsing Hui, can you tell us where you found these spiritual items of heaven and earth? Jiang Xingdao hesitated for a moment and asked. Tsing Hui glanced at Jiang Xingdao. Now was not the time to tell them about the existence of the infinite wasteland world, although it was not difficult for him to protect them in the infinite wasteland world given his current status. To teleport a large number of people from the Earth world to the infinite wasteland world would require too many spatial crystals, so much so that all the 30-level sons of chaos on the infinite wasteland world combined would not be able to supply it. Therefore, I only found a few spiritual items of heaven and earth in that place, so you don't have to spend too much effort. Jiang Xingdao's expression suddenly dimmed when he heard this. Seeing this, Qin Yiming wanted to persuade Xing Hui. He understood that the mysterious flower still had 5 petals, so it was not a big deal to contribute it. However, after hesitating for a moment, he thought of Xing Hui's current age and the magical abilities he had displayed in the past few hours and did not say anything in the end. The child had grown up and he could make his own decisions. If anyone can find Jiang Ningji, I can give him a spiritual item of heaven and earth that my father just used as a personal reward. Just as Jiang Xingdao was feeling helpless, Xing Hui suddenly said, I can tell you clearly that the strengthening of the physique of this spiritual item of heaven and earth is only a side effect. Its real effect is, to extend one's life by 100 years. Chapter 720. 100 Years of Life Extension. These 4 simple words made the entire Wuxia region bustle with noise and excitement. Countless powerful and influential figures mobilized all the manpower and material resources in their hands and began to search every corner of the Wuxia region, looking for all the information related to Jiang Ningji. Their efforts were unprecedentedly great. In today's world, even those with power and influence could only live to the age of 80. 100 years of life extension was more than double their lifespan. Such a temptation was enough to make anyone go crazy. With the personal testimony of Qin Yiming, the deputy mayor of Guyu City, it greatly proved the authenticity of this matter. Under such circumstances, as long as that person was not dead, even if he hid deep in the mountains and forests, he would more or less hear about this matter. Time flew by. During this period of time, the Research Institute in ancient Jade City had been fully replenished, both in terms of equipment and manpower. Even though it was still not comparable to the best research institutes in the Wuxia region, its scale had already surpassed any research institute on the level of a main city. Under the calculations and research of countless researchers, countless data regarding the evolution of stars surged and accumulated before being tidied up and presented before Qing Su. It was converted into Qing Su's accumulation of his way of the sword that had yet to form the third sword. While studying the third sword, he also spent a lot of time and effort flipping through many materials about the ancient myths in the Wuxia region. He was not willing to let go of any relevant clues and did everything he could to uncover the truth of the ancient myths. Due to the fact that his schedule was packed to the brim every single day, he had a long way to go before he could finish his research. Qing Su basically did not have the time to consider anything else. Only when his research on the third sword reached a bottleneck did he suddenly realize that half a month had already passed before he knew it. After half a month, whether it was the civil official system, the military, or the Fighters Association, none of them had sent him any news about Jiang Ningji. This immediately made Qing Su lose his patience. After pulling his attention away from the research institute, he began to look for the representatives of the 3 factions as soon as possible. Fortunately, among the 3 camps, Jiang Xingdao, Shi Chui, and the vice president of the Warriors Association, Sima Xing, were all stationed in Guyu City. Their purpose was to appease Xing Hui and prevent any unexpected changes. After receiving his summons, they immediately appeared in his reception hall. Dean Xing Hui, unknowingly, 15 days have passed. If you didn't send any news after a day or 2, it would make sense. But now, 15 days have passed, and all of you are still unable to find my senior sister Jiang Ningji. This makes me very suspicious of your abilities. Xing Hui said solemnly. Dean Xing Hui, things are different now. Due to the rampaging of the dire beasts, the entire Wuxia region has been split apart by the dire beasts, with the Yuhai province as the center. Coupled with the destruction caused by the dire beasts and the electromagnetic storms that spread out from time to time, the government's monitoring of the local areas is actually not as good as before the disaster. Shi Chui said awkwardly. I don't want to hear the reason. I just want to know the answer. Don't worry, Dean Xinghui. In fact, when Miss Jiang was wanted by the local authorities, under the pursuit of the Huang family, the Yi family, and the martial artists that Boss Qi hired with money, it is very likely that she felt that it was difficult to stay in the Wuxia region anymore and chose to go overseas. Currently, we are already contacting the overseas world to see if there are any relevant clues. I believe that there will be news soon. Overseas, other countries, Xinghui had a vague idea in his mind. Please rest assured, Dean Xinghui, enough. Before Jiang Xingdao could finish, Qing Su had already interrupted him with a wave of his hand, half a month. That's about my limit. If I've guessed correctly, although you've begun to use overseas forces to investigate my senior sister Jiang Ningji's whereabouts, you've done everything in secret. You don't want the news to be leaked, right? I understand what you mean. Whether it is me or the spirit item that I intend to give out that can extend one's life by 100 years, the big shots in the upper echelons all have the intention of pocketing it. They don't want this matter to be known to everyone and lose their advantage, but I don't care what they think. What I want to do is to find my senior sister Jiang Ningji as soon as possible. Since she may have fled overseas more than 10 years ago, and you don't have enough forces overseas, then I will personally go overseas and find someone who can help me find senior sister Jiang and find her. This. Dean Xinghui, please don't be impatient. Our overseas personnel have already been fully mobilized. It won't be long before we have detailed clues, that's it. Xinghui didn't give Jiang Xingdao any time to speak and said directly, I don't know to what extent you have sealed off information about me, but I will clear out the dire beasts around the spatial passage in the Mediterranean. I believe that when I show enough strength, there will naturally be people who will come looking for me. Seeing that Xinghui had made up his mind, Jiang Xingdao could only sigh. Miss Jiang Ningji may have indeed fled overseas to other regions, so much so that we can't find her even if we dig 3 feet into the ground in the Wuxia region. But, there is another result that we may not be able to avoid. That is, Miss Jiang may have met with misfortune. The outbreak of the dire beasts has shattered too many families and left too many people homeless. According to incomplete statistics, more than 1.5 billion people have died directly or indirectly in the dire beasts disaster, which is equivalent to 1/5 of the total population of the Earth. As for the humans who have been affected by the dire beasts disaster, there are even more uncountable, so, Senior Sister Jiang is different from ordinary people. She is a high-level martial artist and won't die so easily. Moreover, I don't believe that she will die. After Xinghui finished speaking, he didn't want to talk to Jiang Xingdao and the others anymore. He got up and walked out of the living room. Dean Xinghui, if you really want to go to the spatial passage in the Mediterranean to kill the dire beasts, we can use a fighter jet to send you there. Moreover, after the other countries have learned of your strength and contacted us, we can also have specialized people to deal with these matters. Dean Xinghui, you don't have to do it yourself, Jiang Xingdao hurriedly suggested when he saw that the situation was hopeless. With the fighter jet of the Wuxia military sending Xinghui to the spatial passage in the Mediterranean, they could even say that this was assistance to the countries in the Mediterranean region. When the time came, not only would they gain a lot of benefits, but they could also form a strong deterrent to those countries. There's no need. Qing Su could tell what Jiang Xingdao and the others were trying to do. After leaving the research institute, he directly leapt up, and when he reached a certain height, he suddenly accelerated. He actually did not show any signs of falling at all. Like a meteor, he broke through the sound barrier and shot off into the horizon as he whistled. Seeing this scene, Jiang Xingdao, Shi Chui, Sima Xing, and the others who followed closely behind widened their eyes and couldn't recover for a long time. Flying. Sword Saint Xing Hui. He can actually fly. This is not true flying. It's because his speed is too fast and his strength is too great. Gas is no longer a pure gas to him, but more like a solid. However, even if he has reached this level, he is still inferior to Sword Saint Xing Hui. If I'm not wrong, this should be a kind of application of martial will. When the martial will is strong to the extreme, it can interfere with matter and move foreign objects. Naturally, it has the ability to guide oneself. Jiang Xingdao, the legendary martial saint, slowly answered. As one of the strongest people on earth, he could vaguely understand the means that Xing Hui had just displayed. What should we do now? What else can we do? Let's inform the few chairmen of the parliament. Sword Saint Xing Hui obviously won't act according to what they imagined. They want to monopolize the spiritual item of heaven and earth that can prolong one's life by 100 years and control Sword Saint Xing Hui as the only secret weapon of our Wuxia region. Fortunately, Qing Yuming is still in our Wuxia region. As long as we can grasp this point, our Wuxia region will have an advantage that other regions can't compare to. As Jiang Xingdao spoke, he looked at Xing Hui, who flew into the void and disappeared quickly. His eyes were filled with envy. Flying, this had always been the dream of humans. Now that he had witnessed a martial artist's almost godlike actions, it opened a new door for him, the legendary martial saint. Xing Hui's physique had already reached the level of a 10th level sacred beast. Even if he were to rely on his physical strength to run at full speed, he would still be able to reach 5 times the speed of sound. Right now, with the help of his ability to manipulate objects with his mind, he was able to break through 6 times the speed of sound. He was a lot faster than most of the missiles in the Earth Federation. At such a terrifying speed, even though there was a distance of 9,000 kilometers between Guyu City and the Mediterranean Sea, it only took him slightly more than an hour. However, although he was able to fly at full speed, he brought endless trouble to the local garrison when he barged into the airspace identification zone. Many fighter aircrafts entered battle mode, and many defensive missiles were prepared to be launched. However, without exception, Xing Hui's speed was too fast, and they were all left far behind. Relying on this speed that most missiles and fighter aircrafts could not catch up to, he passed through countless military bases at lightning speed and appeared directly within the range of the spatial fluctuations in the spatial passage on the southern shore of the Mediterranean Sea. Under the watchful eyes of the local garrison of the 14th district, he charged into the range of the spatial fluctuations. The spatial tunnel on the southern shore of the Mediterranean Sea was one of the largest spatial tunnels that currently existed. There had been more than one experience of apocalypse-level ferocious beasts coming out of the spatial interference range to attack human cities. Compared to the spatial tunnel in the Jade Sea, where many apocalypse-level ferocious beasts were holed up, it was undoubtedly much more dangerous. Therefore, the number and quality of the troops stationed here were much higher. Even when Xing Hui had just arrived in the sky above the fortress outside the spatial interference range, he could clearly see tens of thousands of dire beasts attacking the many fortresses built outside the spatial interference range. The attacks of these tens of thousands of dire beasts were just regular attacks to the defending troops here. They happened almost every day. I'm not here to kill the dire beasts. I'm here to be a savior. Xing Hui estimated the defensive strength of the defensive line outside the Mediterranean Sea. His figure suddenly accelerated and charged directly into the spatial interference range. Chapter 721. What kind of creature was that just now? Was it a bird-type dire beast? But its speed is too fast. We can't capture a specific image of it. That bird-type ferocious beast seems to have taken off directly from the Wuxia region, and it has now rushed into the spatial interference zone. Fortunately, it hasn't attacked us yet. Otherwise, I really don't know what kind of weapons we humans would use to fight against a terrifying bird that can fly at Mach 6. Currently, the fastest flying beast that has appeared is only Mach 1. 5. Why would such a terrifying flying beast appear all of a sudden? Could it be that the news from the Wuxia region is true? Is there really a leader-level dire beast above the apocalyptic-level dire beast? Thank God, this dire beast flew into the spatial interference zone. We don't need to fight it anymore. Xing Hui paused for a moment at the defense line on the southern shore of the Mediterranean Sea. Naturally, it caused chaos in the defense line, but most of them were glad. After all, anyone who had tried it out would understand what a creature that could fly at Mach 6 meant. In fact, when Xing Hui flew at Mach 6, many of the higher-ups of the Wuxia region, who thought they had tested Xing Hui's limits, were stunned and made a series of decisions. As a matter of fact, the commander of the eastern fortress far away in the Mediterranean Sea, the 4-star general of the Federation, LV Dongyang, quickly led his men to the headquarters of the Mediterranean Sea defense line. There, the deputy speaker of the Supreme Council of the Earth Federation, Zhu Kefu, was also convening the commanders representing the other regions on the defense line for a meeting. When LV Dongyang arrived at the meeting room, there were already many important people waiting there. Upon seeing him, Marshal Zhu Kefu immediately asked, "Commander LV, according to the information we received, that bird first appeared in the Wuxia region. I need detailed information about that bird from the Wuxia region. What happened to that bird? Why is it that a month ago, the most powerful bird's speed was only Mach 1. 5, but now, this bird can fly at Mach 6. LV Dongyang thought of the news that the higher-ups of the Wuxia region had discussed and could not help but have a headache. However, in front of these important people whose status was not below his, he had no choice but to force himself. Marshal Zhu Kefu, I believe you have already received the news, but you can't confirm it. I'm here this time to tell you the truth. The data you just observed, and even the information you have vaguely received during this period, are all true. The figure that whistled past our Mediterranean defense line is not a bird from the dire beast camp, but a human being from the Wuxia region. A human being came from the Wuxia region. A human being from our region. God! That's impossible. It's already a fantasy for a human being to be able to fly, and a flying speed of Mach 6. Commander LV, are you sure you're not joking with me? This is ridiculous. This is a serious meeting. We shouldn't be talking about such a ridiculous topic in such a solemn occasion. As soon as LV Dongyang finished speaking, the other commanders in the meeting room could not hold back their screams and cries. Does that mean that the leader level really exists? Marshal Zhu Kefu obviously had more information and did not lose his composure like the other commanders. It may be hard to believe, but it's the truth. LV Dongyang shrugged. Moreover, according to our previous estimation of the energy levels of dire beasts, the true energy level of this human being from the Wuxia region is not as simple as the so-called leader class above the apocalypse level. His strength is at least 2 energy levels higher than the apocalypse level dire beasts. Therefore, we specially created a new energy level above the apocalypse level and leader class dire beasts, the king class. His combat power is already the strongest in the world, and he is the strongest king class. The strongest king class, everyone in the meeting room was silent. However, when they thought of the flying speed Xing Hui had just shown across the Wuxia region, no one doubted this statement. At least, in their minds, the leader class dire beasts above the apocalypse level would definitely not be this powerful. This was a realm that was beyond what humans could fight against. After a while, Marshal Zhu Kefu slowly said, "Then, what is the reason for this strongest king to suddenly come to our Mediterranean defense belt? To help us fight against the endless stream of dire beasts emerging from the Mediterranean space passage? If this is the case, then I would like to express my gratitude to him on behalf of the 64 million soldiers of the 14th District Coalition Army." Hearing Marshal Zhu Kefu's question, LV Dongyang looked a little embarrassed, but after a moment, he recovered and said, "This time, the main purpose of the strongest king, Sword Saint Xing Hui's visit is to ask for your help. You are all high-ranking members of your district council, and even chairman-level figures. A friend of Sword Saint Xing Hui seemed to have left our Huaxia region 13 years ago and came to an overseas region. If anyone can find that friend of Sword Saint Xing Hui, not only will they be able to obtain the friendship of Sword Saint Xing Hui, but they will also be able to obtain a treasure bestowed by Sword Saint Xing Hui, a treasure that can extend one's lifespan by 100 years. 100 years? Commander LV of the East, if I'm not wrong, you mean that treasure can extend one's lifespan by 100 years? A strong man with long golden hair, as noble as a lion, asked. This was 5-star General George Marshall from the North America region. His family not only had great influence in the North America region, but he was also a terrifying warrior who was powerful enough to fight against a legendary warrior like Jiang Xingdao. He had been stationed in the Mediterranean Sea defense line for 4 years, and in these 4 years, the number of disaster-level dire beasts that had died in his hands had reached double digits. He could be said to be one of the top 10 human powerhouses who had killed the most disaster-level dire beasts. General George did not misunderstand. If one can obtain the treasure bestowed by Sword Saint Xing Hui and consume it, it can indeed extend one's lifespan by 100 years. This point, someone in our Huaxia region has personally experienced it, and that is Sword Saint Xing Hui's father. LV Dongyang said as he sent a piece of data to a wristwatch worn by everyone for communication. You can take a look at this. This is the body report data that Sword Saint Xing Hui's father, Qin Yuming, cooperated with us 10 days ago. In the data, we have highlighted the cell activity of the city lord Qin Yuming. From this, you should be able to judge whether what I said is true or not. LV Dongyang's words naturally focused everyone's attention on the data he sent. For a moment, there were bursts of uncontrollable exclamations in the hall again. Miracle, this is a miracle. It's actually true. Oh my God, only the power of God can break the limits of human cell structure. That Xing Hui, is he a messenger sent by God? LV Dongyang listened to the exclamations of the people in the hall and said bluntly, to be honest, our Huaxia region originally intended to take this benefit for ourselves. However, in half a month, we still haven't found the person that Sword Saint Xing Hui asked us to find. Sword Saint Xing Hui has lost his patience, so we have no choice but to make this matter public and borrow your strength. Although a treasure that can extend one's lifespan by 100 years is good, I don't think it will fall into my hands. I just want to know, what does His Excellency Xing Hui want to do by coming to our Mediterranean defense line? Zhu Kefu waved his hand, suppressed the exclamations of the crowd, and asked in a deep voice. Guarding the Mediterranean defense line is his greatest responsibility. The purpose of Sword Saint Xing Hui. I think he should want to give you a gift to lighten your burden. LV Dongyang pondered for a moment and said. Lighten our burden? That's right. Not long ago, the Green Ruins Sword Saint ventured deep into the range of the spatial tunnel of our Jade Sea and killed 4 apocalypse-level feral beasts, thousands of annihilation-level and disaster-level feral beasts, and countless great and lord-level feral beasts. LV Dongyang said with a smile, I'm afraid that for a long time, Marshal Zhu Kefu and the rest will have an easier time. That Sword Saint Xing Hui wants to charge into the Mediterranean Sea spatial passage alone to kill the dire beasts inside. Zhu Kefu immediately understood what LV Dongyang was talking about and couldn't help but exclaim, is he crazy? Does he think that our Mediterranean Sea spatial passage is like the one in Jade Sea in your Huaxia region that only has a few small fries? Over the years, no less than 10 apocalypse-level dire beasts have rushed out from there, and there are even more dire beasts guarding the spatial channel. There might even be a real leader-level dire beast inside. You people know that he's going crazy, but you don't stop him. Are you sending him to his death? Die. I don't think so. LV Dongyang had a direct understanding of Xing Hui's strengths and weaknesses. Hearing everyone's words, he didn't look worried at all. You, buzz. Zhu Kefu was about to say something, but at this moment, his wristwatch vibrated slightly. As he connected the message, the panicked voice of an observer immediately came from it. Marshal, according to our latest observation, many of the ferocious beasts near the spatial passage seem to have been greatly frightened. They are currently rushing in the opposite direction of the spatial passage. At this rate, we will face an attack from the ferocious beast tide in 2 to 3 hours. Please prepare your defenses immediately. Were you frightened? Dire beast tide? Zhu Kefu's expression changed as he suddenly thought of something. His face was filled with disbelief. It can't be the work of that ultimate king, right? He alone can make the dire beasts panic. This is a dire beast tide outside the Mediterranean spatial passage. Well, Marshal, let's prepare for the dire beast tide. However, I think the impact of the dire beast tide this time shouldn't be too strong. Even if there may be a lot of them, there shouldn't be any powerful dire beasts rushing out. At least, there shouldn't be any apocalyptic beasts. These dire beasts have probably been killed by Sword Saint Xinghui one by one. LV Dongyang said with a relaxed expression, as if all this was within his expectations. I hope that the strongest king whom you have high hopes for really has this ability. If he can really kill all the apocalypse-level dire beasts around the Mediterranean Sea space channel, I will do my best to find the person he is looking for just based on this great contribution he has made. After Zhu Kefu finished speaking, his gaze swept across all the commanders present. Gentlemen, let's move. Didn't you hear? The dire beast tide is coming. Chapter 722. Just as the observer had said, although the scale of the beast tide this time was not small, due to the lack of a top apocalypse-level dire beast leader, it did not cause too much damage to the well-armed Mediterranean Sea defense line. In fact, not only were there no apocalypse-level dire beasts, even the number of annihilation-level dire beasts was pitifully low. Those powerful dire beasts were obviously killed by Xinghui, who had the title of king. Although there were many dire beasts that escaped the net, they happened to be low-level and normal-level dire beasts that were easy to deal with mechanized equipment. The cannonballs washed the ground, and few of these low-level dire beasts could survive. The artillery bombardment lasted for nearly an hour. It was not until an hour later that the beast tide gradually subsided. The number of dire beasts that came to attack decreased from millions to tens of thousands. The calm did not last long. Rumble. Accompanied by a deafening roar from the horizon, a figure quickly came toward the fortress with a sonic boom. The fortress's air defense mechanism was activated immediately. Cannonballs quickly flew into the void. Unfortunately, these cannonballs only had time to explode into bursts of dazzling sparks in the void. This violent sonic boom had already passed through the fortress's air defense line and landed steadily on a platform in the fortress's main fortress. Even if he had deliberately controlled the wind pressure when he flew, when he landed on the top of the main fortress, the circular main fortress that was completely made of steel still caved in with a diameter of 5 to 6 meters. It almost collapsed. As Xinghui's figure appeared, many intelligent weapons were aimed at his body at the same time. The elite troops guarding the main fortress quickly surrounded him with all kinds of heavy weapons. However, before they could launch an attack on the figure that suddenly appeared, an order had been broadcasted over the main fortress. Stop! Stop! Then, Marshal Zhu Kefu and the other commanders quickly ran from the direction of the command room. They looked at Xinghui, who was standing on the top of the fortress, and quickly greeted him. Is it King Xinghui? When Xinghui heard Zhu Kefu's shout, he understood what the so-called king meant. He nodded his head and landed on the ground. Then, he threw an item to Zhu Kefu. When Zhu Kefu caught the item, he realized that it was a special camera. I have killed all the dire beasts above annihilation class within a 100-kilometer radius of the Mediterranean Sea space tunnel. As for the numbers, there should be around 3,000 annihilation class dire beasts and around 40 apocalypse class dire beasts. There are also 3 creatures that are suspected to be beyond apocalypse class. Unless another wave of powerful dire beasts is sent through the space tunnel, the Mediterranean Sea defense line will be safe for a long time. When I killed these dire beasts, I recorded it. Zhu Kefu was stunned, disbelief written all over his face. He was fighting against disaster class, apocalypse class, and even above apocalypse class, yet he was still able to carry a camera and record it? Since you have called out my identity, I believe that the Wuxia region has already contacted you. Then, you should also know what I need to do and what kind of conditions I have set. If any region can find Jiang Ningji for me, in addition to the rewards I will give, I will also help you kill all the powerful dire beasts that invade their region. In the current environment where space fluctuations are constantly expanding and space tunnels are increasing, I believe that you know better than I do what a near completely safe area can do. Because I know that you people in power are the kind of people who do not do things without evidence, what is recorded in the camera is the evidence I will give. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, his tone paused slightly, and his eyes swept over the generals who followed closely behind Zhu Kefu. In addition, don't have any thoughts that you shouldn't have, and don't have any unnecessary thoughts. Otherwise, you will find that I am far more terrifying than the so-called apocalypse-class dire beasts, leader-class dire beasts, and even this so-called king-class creature you have newly established. Zhu Kefu's expression changed slightly, but considering the unbelievably terrifying strength Tsing Hui had displayed this time, he still said in a deep voice, "Please rest assured, King Tsing Hui. For a hero like you who can almost save the entire human civilization, we will definitely do our best to satisfy your request." "I hope so." Tsing Hui's expression was indifferent, then he raised his head and looked in the direction of the space tunnel. "I don't know how long my patience can last, but if all the regions of the entire Earth Federation can't even satisfy such a small request, then I will doubt the ability of the ruling Supreme Council of the Earth Federation. At that time, in order to be able to integrate all the manpower and material resources to find the person I want to find, I will do it myself, such as, turning the Earth Federation into the Earth Empire." The Earth Empire, one was a parliamentary system, and the other was a centralized system. As for who would be the first emperor if Tsing Hui really established the Earth Empire, there was no need to guess. These words were almost equivalent to Tsing Hui giving them an ultimatum. Zhu Kefu was somewhat dissatisfied, but he couldn't express it in front of Tsing Hui. He only said in a deep voice, "Earth civilization can only regain its original glory under the leadership of the Earth Federation. Facts have proven that entrusting the responsibility of governing a civilization to the will of a single person will only cause that civilization to gradually collapse and die out. I believe that no one with insight will approve of Earth's return to a centralized system. Of course, as for King Tsing Hui's request, I will mobilize the forces of the Aurora region to search for the person you want to find. Once we find the person you want, we will inform you immediately." "Very good." Tsing Hui said, "Those videos have a message that I recorded alone. I want all media to repost and broadcast it. I want to see this video wherever there are people. This is a small matter, I will order the local media to cooperate." Marshal Zhu Kefu said, "Heroes fight on the battlefield against the fierce beasts, we will naturally ensure the safety of their family and friends in the rear. Sword Saint Tsing Hui, you can rest assured on this point." At this moment, LV Dongyang from the Wuxia region hurried over when he heard the commotion. He quickly spoke and added, "Sword Saint Ching Su, the top 30 scientists in the country that you've requested will arrive in ancient Jade City in 3 hours. I believe they'll be of great help to your research once they arrive. In particular, the most famous Taoist master in the history of our Wuxia region, the Greater One Spiritual Master, has rushed over from afar. When do you think you'll be able to return to ancient Jade City and assign them their research tasks?" Admiral George had already investigated Tsing Hui in detail and naturally knew what Tsing Hui was researching. In order to pull Tsing Hui to the North America region, he promised without hesitation, "King Tsing Hui, our North America region has the most advanced scientific research institute in the entire Earth Federation. Let alone studying stars, even if you want to study neutron stars or black holes, we have a large amount of data to support it. At the same time, if you want to use the many scientists in our North America region, we will do our best to satisfy them. We must create the best research environment for you to complete your research. There's no need. Alright, I'll wait for your good news. Xing Hui said. Then, without saying anything else, he leaped up and accelerated in the void. In an instant, he broke through the sound barrier and disappeared into the horizon. I didn't expect a human warrior to be able to do this. Even if I see this scene countless times, I can't hide the shock in my heart. LV Dongyang looked at Xing Hui, who had disappeared into the horizon, unable to recover for a long time. Marshal Zhu Kefu was carefully thinking about the feasibility of Xing Hui's plan to establish an empire on Earth. Although he did not think that Xing Hui alone could establish an empire, if he was dissatisfied with the Earth Federation and wanted to destroy the current Earth Federation, no one in the entire Earth Federation would be able to stop him. At this point, even if he was already a chairman of the Supreme Parliament, he still could not help but break out in a cold sweat. After nearly 2 hours of flying, Xing Hui had once again returned to ancient Jade City. This round trip took less than a day, but what he had done was enough to shock the world. But Xing Hui did not think too much about it. After returning to the ancient Jade City Research Institute, the first thing he did was find the Greater One Spiritual Master, who had the most profound research on the mythology and history of ancient Wuxia. Greater One Spiritual Master. Dean Xing Hui. Seeing Xing Hui, the Greater One Spiritual Master appeared very enthusiastic. I finally meet Dean Xing Hui in person. After learning about the various deeds of Dean Xing Hui, I have been looking forward to the arrival of this day. Now that I am able to meet Dean Xing Hui alone, Well, Greater One Spiritual Master, there's no need to say too much. I'm just interested in the inheritance of Taoism in your mind, and even the more ancient myths and legends, such as the 3 ancestors of Taoism, the 3 pure sages, and the inheritance of the sword immortals of Mount Shu, and so on. Of course, Dean Xing Hui is very interested in the legend of the sword immortals of Mount Shu. This is really fate. In fact, I was born in Mount Shu, and know the inheritance of Mount Shu like the back of my hand. I even know a lot about the legends of the Holy Land of Taoism, the Kunlun Sacred Mountain. As the Greater One Spiritual Master spoke, he had already taken out a scroll from his wide sleeve. This is the Qi refining method of our Mount Shu, called the Myriad Sword Record. Please kindly accept it, Dean Xing Hui. The Myriad Sword Record, of Mount Shu. Xing Hui was slightly taken aback, then took the scroll from the Greater One Spiritual Master and flipped through it for a moment. In less than 5 minutes, Xing Hui snorted, a bunch of nonsense. The Qi refining and sword training methods recorded in the scroll, with his current knowledge and experience, he could recognize that there was no basis at all. Seeing that Xing Hui was displeased, the originally smiling Greater One Spiritual Master suddenly panicked and hurriedly said, Dean Xing Hui, don't worry, Dean Xing Hui, don't worry, we still have a lot of good things in Mount Shu. Sword techniques, immortal techniques, Qi refining techniques, immortal swords, and alchemy techniques, all have been passed down, but most of them are incomplete, so I can't take them out to show my incompetence to Dean. Speaking of this, he seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly said, yes, our Mount Shu is said to have a cave. This cave is said to be supported by the roots of a divine tree that was born at the time of the creation of heaven and earth. It's just that the method to enter the cave has been lost, but 13 years ago I saw with my own eyes a trace of the mysterious aura emanating from the cave. It was a giant tree that was so huge that it could not be described with words. Cave. Divine tree. Xing Hui's heart skipped a beat. Yes, it is the divine tree that was planted in the cave. Unfortunately, it seems that it is not fated to enter, but Dean Xing Hui is a dragon among men, and will certainly be recognized by the Mount Shu cave. Henceforth, you will step into the cave, become an immortal, and become an ancestor. Chapter 723. Give me detailed information about the Shushan Grotto Heaven. Tsing Hui said. Please wait a moment, Dean, I will immediately organize the information for you to see. Good, as soon as possible. Tsing Hui had a brief conversation, and soon entered the Research Institute. At this time, the Research Institute had grown several times in size and equipment compared to half a month ago. It was not much inferior to the top research institutes in the region. Models of stars, neutron stars, and black holes were built one after another. While waiting for the Greater One Spiritual Master to send the relevant information about the Shushan Grotto Heaven, Tsing Hui looked at a new research model and a series of related data that had been built by many scientists. A star is composed of plasma, relying on the thermonuclear reaction of hydrogen and helium elements to provide a huge pressure to support its huge body. When its thermonuclear energy is exhausted, it will lose enough pressure to support its shell, and its shell will collapse and shrink. In the process, the gravitational energy inside the star will be released, causing the star to form a part of the outward pressure, and gradually rebalance. Smaller stars need support, so the degree of collapse is smaller, and it will become a white dwarf, and when the mass of a star is greater than the Lasker limit, it will become a denser neutron star. However, when the mass of a star reaches a certain level, it will be difficult to compress the shell collapse, and eventually even the neutrons will be crushed, and it will become a black hole that even light cannot escape. Tsing Hui looked at the detailed information, combined with the sword of the sun that he had created, and gradually derived many ideas in his mind. The structure of the sword of the sun in his hand was very stable, and it was still a little away from the collapse caused by a supernova explosion and ultimately transforming into a neutron star. But it was not that there was no way. The interior of a star mainly relied on the energy produced by nuclear fusion to resist the gravitational force of the star itself to maintain stability. The outward expansion force formed by the release of energy was balanced by the gravitational force of the star. The larger the star, the more energy it needs, the faster it consumes hydrogen, and then the formed helium continues to fuse to form carbon and oxygen atoms. The degree of fusion depends on the mass of the star. As the mass accumulated in the core of a star, the gravitational force became stronger and stronger, and the raw materials for nuclear fusion became less and less. When the force provided by the degeneracy between the energy of nuclear fusion and the free electrons could no longer resist the gravitational force, the star would suddenly collapse at a speed of more than 45,000 miles per second. The temperature of the core would rise rapidly, and the gas would be smashed into the core at close to the speed of light under the gravitational force. This process would have a rebound effect. Part of the gas that entered would spiral upwards and be blown out of the core. The electrons and protons in the core would compress to produce neutrinos. When the neutrinos passed through the dense gas, part of them would be absorbed. The gas would gain a huge amount of energy and explode, producing X-rays, gamma rays, and ultraviolet rays. The gas would absorb heat again, and the temperature would rise to millions of degrees, releasing unprecedented light. This form can be used to construct and perfect the third sword after my sword of the sun. This sword is a simulation of the phenomenon of a neutron star formed by the explosion of a supernova. Then, after the sword of the sun and the sword of the sun, the third sword after the sword of the sun shall be named the sword of the eclipse. Tsing Hui's thoughts gradually became clear. Now that the idea was clear, the next step was to slowly try, perfect, and construct a perfect plan. Only after leaving the almost forbidden environment of Earth and returning to the divine wilderness could he carry out the plan one by one. I already have the idea of the third sword, the sword of the eclipse. I even have some ideas about the fourth sword. After the neutron star, it is the black hole. But I still need to rely on the more detailed data given to me by the researchers. Tsing Hui's eyes flashed. Neutron stars and black holes were almost the same in nature, but black holes had more mass than neutron stars. If there were two neutron stars that accompanied each other, and one neutron star swallowed the other neutron star, it was very likely to evolve into a black hole. Massachusetts. Xing Hui closed his eyes, quietly digesting the knowledge, and then constantly summarizing the newly acquired knowledge and his own cultivation situation. The third sword, the sword of the eclipse, was almost completed. He only needed to go to the divine wilderness to really test and practice it. Its power. He believed that it would not disappoint him. As for the fourth sword that was in the process of being created. Dean, Greater One Spiritual Master has been waiting for you in the office for a long time. When Xing Hui slowly recovered from the creation of the fourth sword, Havril, who was ordered by Dean Kubi to be Xing Hui's assistant, had already whispered to him. Although the two had a relationship with Qin Yeming, but in the research institute, they naturally had the same position. You're here. Xing Hui nodded, heading toward the office. In the office, in addition to the Greater One Spiritual Master, there were two other sage-like old men. It was just that these two old men, in the eyes of ordinary people, were like old immortals, but in front of Xing Hui they were full of enthusiasm. Dean. Dean, you're here. Dean, these two are also the most famous grandmasters of our Taoist sect. One is the head of the Kunlun sect, known as the #1 Taoist sect in the world, Spiritual Master Yushu, and the other is the master of the Penglai Immortal Mountain, Spiritual Master Mingbo. The two spiritual masters learned that Dean Xing Hui is interested in our Shushan Immortal Mountain, and specially came to discuss the Kunlun Immortal Mountain and Penglai Immortal Mountain with Dean Xing Hui. Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Penglai Immortal Mountain. You also have a Heavenly Immortal Mountain? Xing Hui asked. Our Kunlun sect has always been the leader of Taoism. 13 years ago, there was also a trace of the heavenly abode. It appeared for a fleeting moment. Under a bizarre and variegated light, hundreds of disciples of our Kunlun sect witnessed a bejeweled jade palace hidden in the water. Although my Penglai Immortal Mountain has not yet had a Heavenly Immortal Mountain, but there have always been rumors of the three mountains overseas, so there must be a Heavenly Immortal Mountain. Unfortunately, we have not had the fortune to see it. Spiritual Master Yushu and Spiritual Master Mingbo said at the same time. Good. Qing Su had already obtained the information he wanted, so he did not waste any more time. He directly said, then, let's go to Kunlun first, then to Mount Shu, and finally to Penglai. I'll get someone to prepare the fighter jets right now. Presumably, our Kunlun Immortal Mountain will not disappoint Dean Xing Hui. Spiritual Master Yushu said with a smile. Xing Hui had already called Jiang Xingdao, who then contacted him. An hour later, the group had already appeared at the airport outside Guyu City. A private jet was already waiting there. As soon as they arrived, they immediately boarded the jet. In less than 10 minutes, the route was approved and the jet rose into the sky, drilling into the clouds. After waiting for more than an hour, the jet landed at an airport less than 100 kilometers away from the Kunlun sect. And in the airport, there were naturally people who had received the news in advance and prepared vehicles for the group to set off directly to the Kunlun sect. 2 hours later, Xing Hui, Spiritual Master Yushu, as well as the Greater One Spiritual Master and Spiritual Master Mingbo were already standing outside the Kunlun sect. Please, Dean Xing Hui, please come in. Spiritual Master Yushu led the way warmly. And Xing Hui was also constantly sizing up the Kunlun sect as he walked. Although the Kunlun sect was the #1 Taoist sect in the world, but in today's world, the Taoist sects had declined. Even though the Kunlun sect had a great reputation, there were only 200 people, and among these 200 people, there were only 100 or so disciples. Xing Hui, relying on his extraordinary eyesight, very quickly took in more than half of the Kunlun sect, and was especially curious about the many Kunlun disciples who were refining qi. But after observing for a moment, he appeared rather disappointed. There were no decent masters in the entire Kunlun sect, and the strongest was only comparable to a lord-level beast. A great lord-level beast was enough to slaughter the entire Kunlun sect. The number one Taoist sect in the world was only at this level, which made him lose confidence in this trip. Is there anyone in the Kunlun sect who has succeeded in cultivation? Xing Hui asked. This spiritual master Yushu looked a little embarrassed. Since the end of the ancient investiture of the gods, our world on earth has been separated, and yin and yang have dissipated. It is no longer suitable for refining qi. Xing Hui immediately understood the meaning of spiritual master Yushu's words. Shaking his head, he no longer looked at them one by one. Instead, he operated the spiritual sensing method he had obtained from the Xiaya Empire, and swept his spiritual power in all directions like a storm and radar, trying to see clearly what was different about the Kunlun sect. And the result? Naturally, there was no result. This was an ancient Taoist sect built in the mountains. Except for many buildings that had a history of thousands of years, there was nothing praiseworthy about it. Dean Xing Hui, follow me. That mountain is where we saw the grotto heaven scene. Spiritual Master Yushu led Xing Hui through the Kunlun sect, and soon came to the foot of a mountain 5 or 6 kilometers away from the main hall of the Kunlun sect. This mountain peak could not be said to be majestic, and there were no traces of human habitation. Compared to the other mountain peaks, there was nothing special about it. Xing Hui carefully studied it, and even used his spiritual power to constantly scan, but he still could not see what was so special about this mountain peak. Are you sure it is this mountain peak? I am sure. At that time, those mystical scenes appeared on this mountain peak, although it was only the tip of the iceberg of my Kunlun sect, but the range of appearance was about 3 kilometers around this mountain peak. This scene was witnessed by hundreds of disciples of the Kunlun sect. The mystical scenes lasted for nearly 10 breaths before dissipating. Spiritual Master Yushu said with certainty. 13 years ago. Xing Hui said, glancing at the Greater One Spiritual Master. It seemed that the mystical appearance of the Shushan Grotto Heaven was also 13 years ago. That's interesting. Xing Hui said thoughtfully. What happened 13 years ago? It seemed. It was related to the space distortion of Dongyang Mountain. Because of the space distortion of Dongyang Mountain, he was transmitted to the divine wilderness world. The Earth world was invaded by an extraterrestrial civilization, and now there were many mystical scenes in these ancient grotto heavens. It seemed. He really accidentally touched something. What exactly is it? Xing Hui stood at the foot of the mountain peak, frowning slightly. A moment later, he seemed to have thought of something, and his heart was suddenly shaken. The next moment, his mind was all focused on the center of his spiritual world, where the piece of good fortune jade had been repaired and was much more complete than before. And when his eyes fell on the good fortune jade, he also clearly felt that the good fortune jade was exuding a faint purple light, which was full of a mysterious, profound, and noble aura. If one did not pay close attention, they would not be able to detect it. Good fortune jade. Xing Hui's eyes flashed, and then he directly mobilized the power of the good fortune jade, as though using the good fortune jade to comprehend an immortal technique, to reflect the seemingly empty nameless mountain peak in front of him. Buzz. As the power of the good fortune jade shone, the nameless mountain peak, which did not seem to have any mystical features, suddenly blurred, like the clouds had disappeared, and a vast, magnificent, and unimaginably vast palace, pavilion, and mountain range appeared in front of him. Chapter 724. This. Xing Hui gazed at the vast fairyland that stretched for tens of millions of miles, and his heart suddenly shrank. Really? Really? His conjecture was actually true. On the planet they were on, there were indeed inconceivable mysteries hidden. These mysteries existed in ancient myths and were closely related to many ancient legends of the divine wilderness world. Dean Xing Hui, what's wrong with you? Spiritual Master Yushu and the Greater One Spiritual Master seemed to have noticed the abnormality in Xing Hui's mood, and asked with concern. Xing Hui glanced at them, and his gaze fell on the magnificent world in front of him. He knew. Spiritual Master Yushu and the others could not see. Only by relying on the power of the fortune jade could they understand the location of this paradise. Perhaps, when his understanding of the laws of space reached a deep enough level, he would also be able to freely enter and exit this paradise. No. The entire world of Earth seemed to be imprisoned by an invisible force. Not to mention the laws, even the Yuan Qi of the universe had become lifeless in this world. The fact that his Scarlet Abyss sword had immediately quieted down after arriving in this world was the best proof. If there was no Yuan Qi of the universe on Earth, then when the Scarlet Abyss sword arrived in this world, its Yuan Qi should have rapidly dissipated. The essential Qi in his body should have persisted for several years before dissipating into nothingness. It was not like not long ago, when it seemed to be sealed and still. All of this proved that the world of Earth was a huge anti-magic force field, an indescribably terrifying seal. This seal sealed the world of Earth, causing it to be isolated from the rest of the world. Even before this seal was loosened, the life on Earth thought that there was only one civilization in the vast and boundless starry sky. This was like a fish that was placed in a glass jar into the sea, and thought that the glass jar it lived in was the whole world. With the existence of this seal, even if he really broke through to the shattering vacuum realm and understood the laws of space, there was still nothing he could do when he arrived on Earth. Unless he could break the mysterious seal that shrouded the entire Earth, he would end up like Dongqian, who had mistakenly entered the world of Earth. He would lose his power and gradually die under the erosion of time. Who? Xing Hui let out a long sigh. He knew that as he stepped into this vast immortal realm, the truth of the world of Earth and even the divine wasteland would gradually be revealed in front of him, and a brand new page would be opened in his life. You guys, go back. I plan to stay here and see if I can comprehend the mysteries of the Kunlun Grotto Heaven Immortal Realm. Xing Hui said. Greater One Spiritual Master, Yu Su Spiritual Master and Ming Bo Spiritual Master exchanged a glance. Although they wanted to see clearly what Xing Hui would do, they dared not disobey his orders. They could only agree and turn to leave. Who? After the Greater One Spiritual Master, Yu Su Spiritual Master and Ming Bo Spiritual Master left, Xing Hui let out a long sigh, adjusted his state of mind, and then he stepped forward and took a step forward. If at this time the Greater One Spiritual Master, Yu Su Spiritual Master and Ming Bo Spiritual Master were still here, they would discover that every step that Xing Hui took followed a strange charm. Every time the charm appeared, his figure would become lighter, like a person walking into a mist. As the mist covered his body, his figure gradually blurred, until it disappeared. And the moment he disappeared from this world, the world that he saw gradually became real. It was just that, when the so-called real world completely unfolded in front of him, it made his heart sink slightly. Vast, magnificent, and filled with bejeweled jade palaces. However, in addition to the vastness and magnificence, the entire immortal realm was filled with a vicissitude and ancient aura. Although the bejeweled jade palaces were still there, they seemed to have experienced thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years of precipitation, silently narrating their past glory to the world. This immortal realm has been abandoned for a long time. If calculated from the end of the mythical period after the Battle of the Gods, it should be at least 3,000 years. Xing Hui looked around for a moment, and soon came to a palace. In the palace, there were a lot of objects, but most of them had been destroyed due to the passage of time. In addition, he also found some books, but the fate of these books was no different from the other objects, one by one dissipating in the long river of history, leaving only some traces to prove the existence of these books. Xing Hui looked around one by one. He could sense that the heavenly abode was not very big. However, this was not because it was too small when it was first created. Instead, it was because of the passage of time. The heavenly abode had not been maintained by anyone for too long, which caused the heavenly abode to gradually collapse from the outside. Just like a person who had achieved the boundary realm with a single thought, if he did not maintain his world at all times and fill it with void crystals, the world would inevitably collapse in at least a few decades, or at least half a year. The immortal realm in front of him had existed for at least 3,000 years without anyone maintaining it, and it was estimated that it had a diameter of thousands of kilometers. It was already many times better than those great beings who had achieved the boundary realm with a single thought. Xing Hui spent 3 days walking around the immortal realm, and finally gathered all the useful objects in the center of the immortal realm, which was called the Jade Clear Hall. These objects included pill furnaces, weapons, magic treasures, jade books, golden books, and all kinds of different things. However, Xing Hui could already see that many of the cultivators in the immortal realm seemed to have been attacked before they left, or were about to be attacked. It was an orderly retreat, and because of this order, all the valuable objects in the immortal realm were taken away. Although Xing Hui had found many good things, these things were not considered top-notch objects. This pill furnace, although it is not in the divine wilderness, and does not appear to be magical, according to my calculations, its level should be around the 16th level, and the weapons are between the 14th and 16th level, and the magic treasures, their value is about the same. Xing Hui's gaze swept across these objects one by one. The total profit. It was probably about the same as excavating the cave abode of an almighty being who had achieved the boundary realm with a single thought. In addition, he had 3 jade books and 6 golden books in his hands. The 3 jade books recorded 1 type of refining method, 2 types of alchemy methods, and the 6 golden books were cultivation methods. However, what made Xing Hui feel a little helpless was that these cultivation methods were only at the level of immortals. According to these cultivation methods, the boundary realm with a single thought should correspond to the so-called true immortal realm. As for the realms above the true immortal realm, he had no idea. This is all I got from the Kunlun immortal realm. Although these cultivation methods point to the boundary realm with a single thought, they are not in line with my sword Dao. At best, they can only be used as a reference. I only hope that the Mount Shu immortal realm will have something that satisfies me. Xing Hui said, and then retreated. The immortal realm gradually became blurry in front of his eyes, and soon, he appeared outside the immortal realm. Maybe. Standing outside the grotto heaven, Qing Su looked at the space before him that was gradually blurring. If Earth civilization really can't stand up to that extraterrestrial civilization, then this grotto heaven with a diameter of over 1,000 kilometers can become humanity's final paradise. Xing Hui thought to himself. To be able to open a space passage, the extraterrestrial civilization was very likely to have an overlord who had achieved the boundary realm with a single thought. Although he was a little puzzled as to why an extraterrestrial civilization with a single thought would target a small civilization like Earth, it had already happened, and he could not stop it with his current ability. Therefore, he could only try his best to find a way out for the Earth civilization and keep them alive. Let's go to the Mount Shu immortal realm first and see if there is anything there. If there is no other way, I'll draw a map of the route into Kunlun and the Mount Shu immortal realm and hand it to the Wuxia Senior Council. As for the rest of the federal government, they were not within his range of rescue. After all, the diameter of a Mount Shu immortal realm was only 1,000 kilometers, and the resources inside were definitely not enough to accommodate the entire population of Earth. Director Xing Hui. Seeing Xing Hui come out, Yushu, Tai, Mingbo and the others who were waiting outside hurriedly greeted him. Xing Hui nodded, I'm going to the Mount Shu immortal realm now, you can take your time to catch up, no need to rush. With that, without waiting for the response of these important people, he directly leapt up into the void, and then his power erupted, breaking the sound barrier in an instant, and disappeared into the horizon. Such a simple, violent, overbearing and direct flight method made Greater One Spiritual Master, Yushu Spiritual Master, and Mingbo Spiritual Master envious. The means of a martial artist can also break the air and fly. I don't know when we will be able to achieve such an achievement. Martial artist? Hey, In my opinion, the current director Tsing Hui is no different from a real immortal. No one dares to doubt that he is a true immortal. Greater One Spiritual Master said. As soon as these words came out, Yushu Spiritual Master and Mingbo Spiritual Master nodded in agreement. With Tsing Hui's current ability, most likely the real immortals in their hearts could not be compared to him. Tsing Hui broke through the air at an extremely fast speed. In less than an hour, the land of Mount Shu was already in sight. This time he did not rely on the Greater One Spiritual Master to guide the way, but directly used the power of the Fortune Jade to illuminate the world, and looked towards the sky above Mount Shu. Suddenly, a huge ancient tree that went straight into the clouds, and its top could not be seen in the distance, rose from the ground above Mount Shu, rushing straight into the sky. Even in Tsing Hui's mind, the inconceivably huge canopy of this ancient tree continued to extend, completely enveloping more than half of the world of Earth, and shrouding the entire planet under its inconceivably huge greenery. Divine Tree. This is the divine tree in the Mount Shu immortal realm. Could it be that this sacred tree is the foundation of the entire Earth? Could it be that this sacred tree formed a huge barrier that enveloped the Earth, causing the Earth to become a special environment that is similar to a seal and forbidding magic? Looking at this huge divine tree that filled the entire planet, and expanded the entire star bag, Tsing Hui was shocked from the bottom of his heart. This was a great miracle that was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Just as Tsing Hui's attention was attracted by this inconceivably huge divine tree, a slight vibration dissipated from Tsing Hui's mind. Fortune Jade. Tsing Hui was slightly taken aback. Under the slight vibration and attraction of the Fortune Jade, his eyes darted around, and suddenly fell on the core position at the root of the divine tree. At this moment, under the mysterious effect of the Fortune Divine Jade, his gaze seemed to pierce through the barrier of time and space, and it directly landed on the altar in the deepest part of the divine tree. At the top of the altar, there was an object floating in the middle of a circle of purple light. It was the Fortune Jade. Chapter 725. Fortune Divine Jade. The third piece of Fortune Divine Jade. The Fortune Divine Jade in Tsing Hui's possession was obviously the main body of the Fortune Divine Jade. It possessed many of the mysteries of the Fortune Divine Jade. However, this piece of Fortune Divine Jade actually had one big and two small gaps. The Fortune Divine Jade he had obtained from the Fortune mainland had already filled up one of the small gaps. Not only did the Fortune Divine Jade have the ability to deduce immortal techniques, but the number of Tao rhymes it could produce every day had also increased from 1 Tao rhyme to 2 Tao rhymes. As for the Fortune Divine Jade in front of him, it was the larger piece of Fortune Divine Jade among the three pieces. Its total size was almost a quarter of the entire Fortune Divine Jade. Seeing this item, Tsing Hui's breathing slightly stagnated. Then, without any pause, he burst out at full speed. With a deafening roar, he directly shot out of the Shushan paradise. Then, with the guidance of the Fortune Divine Jade, he quickly stepped into the Shushan paradise. The Shushan paradise was slightly different from the Shushan in Tsing Hui's mind. The entire paradise was a towering divine tree whose top could not be seen. This divine tree was connected to an unknown place. Around the divine tree, there were floating mountains with diameters of a few hundred meters, a few thousand meters, and even tens of thousands of meters, which was more than 10 kilometers. These mountains were like satellites surrounding the towering divine tree, protecting the normal growth of this divine tree. However, at this moment, these floating mountains were all dead silent. There was not the slightest sound coming from above. After entering the Shushan paradise, Tsing Hui glanced at the floating mountains. Without wasting any time, he quickly went to the altar in the middle of the divine tree's roots where the Fortune Divine Jade was suspended. The divine tree's roots were very dense. However, because the divine tree was so huge, the gaps between the roots were like spacious passageways for humans. Xing Hui did almost no damage to the divine tree and easily entered the deepest part of the divine tree's roots. There was an altar with a diameter of 100 meters. It really is the third piece of fortune divine jade. Feeling the resonance between his own fortune divine jade and the one on the altar in front of him, Xing Hui adjusted his state of mind. Then, he slowly stepped forward and stretched out his hand, trying to grasp the fortune divine jade. However, before his hand could come into contact with the fortune jade, an invisible force had already expanded from half a meter around the jade, directly repelling his hand. Even though it did not affect him in any way, he was unable to approach it. Xing Hui frowned and reached out to grab the fortune jade again. This time, he had used his powerful physique, which was equivalent to a class 10 dire beast. With a single claw, even steel would be crushed by him. But, it was still useless. With the fortune jade as the center, there seemed to be a powerful enchantment within half a meter of radius. As long as he did not touch the enchantment, he would be safe and sound. However, as soon as he collided with the enchantment, he would be bounced back immediately. Even with his 10th order physique, he could not do that. After a pause, Xing Hui changed his method again. He released his mind energy, intending to use mind manipulation to retrieve the fortune jade. However, the result, it was still a failure. Could it be because of this altar? Is the altar using an inexplicable force to bind this fortune jade? Xing Hui's gaze fell on the altar beneath his feet. Then, with a little force, he stomped hard, buzz buzz. A circle of air waves visible to the naked eye spread out in all directions from where Xing Hui stomped his foot. This was the impact caused by the explosion of pure energy from his foot colliding with the air. Unfortunately, if his foot had landed somewhere else, a mountain would have collapsed under his stomp. However, the altar, it was still safe and sound. This was a little awkward. Next, Xing Hui used several methods, but he still could not touch the fortune jade. It was as if he could only watch helplessly as the fortune jade was right in front of him. Looks like this formation is very impressive. Xing Hui murmured. After a while, he seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly focused his attention on the fortune jade in his mind world, and then, he activated the power of the fortune jade. As he activated the power of the fortune jade floating above the altar in front of him suddenly vibrated slightly. The magnitude of the vibrations increased as time passed. This works. Xing Hui's eyes lit up. In the next moment, the vibrations of the fortune jade suddenly skyrocketed. Almost immediately after, the fortune jade floating above the altar seemed to be pulled by a great force. It flew out of the altar with a whoosh and shot directly toward Xing Hui. As the purple light scattered, the fortune jade directly entered Xing Hui's body and went deep into his mind sea. It was like a swallow flying into his arms as it merged with the fortune jade in his mind world. As the fortune jade, which was nearly a quarter the size of the entire fortune jade, merged with it, circles of mysterious fluctuation spread out from the fortune jade and filled Xing Hui's mind world, causing changes to quietly occur in Xing Hui's mind world. It was as if his mind world had become even more vast under the impact of this power. Moreover, there was an additional characteristic that he could not describe. This characteristic was indescribable with words, however, it seemed to be vaguely related to the shining dragon bloodline that he had awakened. My mind strength seems to have increased a lot. It's just that I don't have the Son of Chaos interface, so I can't know the exact value of the increase. However, it should be around the 3rd or 4th level. But most importantly, I've finally obtained the fortune jade. Xing Hui's face showed a hint of joy. This fortune jade is nearly a quarter the size of the fortune jade itself. Its effect must be extremely extraordinary. I wonder how many Taoist rhymes it can provide me every day when I return to the divine wilderness world. If it can reach 10 Taoist rhymes, then I'll be able to stabilize my chaos level to the 74th level. Xing Hui's attention sensed the fortune jade for a moment and withdrew his gaze with some anticipation. Next, it's time to take a look at those floating mountains in Mount Shu. As Tsing Hui spoke, he had already leaped up. However, as he flew toward those floating mountains, he vaguely discovered that the many mountains that seemed to be slowly flying around the divine tree seemed to have gradually stopped moving. At the same time, the towering divine tree that was so huge that he could not see the top of it was no longer as thriving as when he first entered. It seemed like there was a hint of withering. When this phenomenon fell into his eyes, he could not help but be moved. Could it be that the fortune jade is the source of the divine tree's power? Now that I've fused with this fortune jade fragment, the divine tree has lost its endless supply of power and is gradually losing its effect. If that's the case, Tsing Hui immediately landed on a huge floating mountain with a diameter of more than 10 kilometers. He closed his eyes and unleashed his sensing ability to the extreme, sensing the chi of heaven and earth that originally did not exist in the void. As he focused his mind and sensed in detail for more than 10 minutes, he finally vaguely felt the existence of a trace of chi of heaven and earth. If he had not deliberately paid attention, he was afraid that the existence of this trace of chi of heaven and earth would have been an illusion. It seems that my guess was right. It's this divine tree that sealed the earth world, causing it to be isolated from the outside world. Thus, cultivation became a legend in myths and legends. Without the path of cultivation, the earth world could only develop science and technology to reach its current state. Tsing Hui could not help but think of the cultivation techniques that he had obtained from the Kunlun Grotto heaven. From these cultivation techniques, it was very likely that the earth world had a true immortal equivalent to the realm of creation with a single thought. It even included those above the true immortal equivalent to the sixth stage of chaos. However, it was because of the seal that was set up in the divine tree that the immortal Tao was cut off and did not appear in the world. If the earth world still had a large number of true immortals equivalent to the realm of creation with a single thought, or even existences above the sixth stage of chaos, why would it be afraid of the invasion of a mere extraterrestrial civilization? They should be thankful that the Earth civilization did not invade them. Fortunately, perhaps due to the passage of time or other reasons, these seals have finally loosened. This allowed me to use the power of the fortune jade to unlock them. Although the recovery of chi of heaven and earth is extremely slow, I estimate that the earth world should be able to recover to the level of the peripheral continents of the divine wilderness in a few decades or 100 years. It should be able to support the cultivation of cultivators. There was a faint smile on Tsing Hui's face. With the vigorous promotion of cultivation in the peripheral continents of the divine wilderness, it was not difficult for people to break through to the sixth stage of immortality. As long as there were many sixth stage of immortality experts among the humans, it would be much easier to deal with the many ferocious beasts that came out of the spatial passage. Let's go see what's left here. Ching Su cast his gaze towards these buildings and began searching them one by one. Compared to the Kunlun Grotto heaven, the Mount Shu Grotto heaven was obviously much simpler. In other words, the entire Mount Shu Grotto heaven existed to protect this divine tree that was used to seal the world. He spent 3 days in the Kunlun Grotto heaven, but in the Mount Shu Grotto heaven, it took less than a day to collect all the well-preserved and useful things. The Mount Shu lineage is indeed worthy of being rumored to have sword immortals. Most of the things found here are actually swords. There are more than 30 divine swords, and their levels are different. However, none of them are below the 12th level. Among them, this one. Tsing Hui took out one of the divine swords. He actually felt a faint trace of spirituality in this divine sword. This was a divine sword with a sword spirit. Moreover, this sword spirit had only fallen into a deep sleep because it had consumed too much energy. It had not reached the stage of extinction, and it only needed a little nourishment to recover. This should be a real divine sword. According to the calculation of a true immortal's world creation with a thought, this is a level 18 divine sword, and it's a level 18 divine sword that has a chance of recovering. Tsing Hui estimated. It should be known that the highest level of divine weapon that had appeared in the divine wilderness was only level 18. That was the most precious treasure of the sword shadow of the 10 great chaotic organizations, the shadow-bearing divine sword. Apart from these divine swords, the greatest gain should be these 33 scrolls of sword techniques, as well as these 6 scrolls of sword cultivation methods. If I familiarize myself with these 6 scrolls of sword cultivation methods, I will definitely be able to perfect the ultimate sword principle. By then, the stagnant ultimate sword principle will most likely be able to take another step forward. Chapter 726. The Tsar District. A group of 6 people was carefully hiding in the wilderness where dire beasts were rampaging. Suddenly, a great lord-ranked ferocious beast appeared in the 6-man party's trap. Taking advantage of the moment the great lord-ranked ferocious beast was trapped, the 6 players swarmed the great lord-ranked ferocious beast, executing a variety of techniques. It did not take long for them to slay the great lord-ranked ferocious beast. After killing the great lord-class dire beast, the group of 6 stepped forward and dissected the great lord-class dire beast. They stripped the best parts of its flesh and stored them in containers on their bodies. After that, they quickly retreated to the defensive line of the stronghold, which was more than 100 kilometers away. When the group safely retreated to the defensive line of the stronghold, the group couldn't help but cheer. It went very smoothly this time. We killed a total of 4 Great Lord-class dire beasts and 10 Hydra Lord-class dire beasts. The flesh and blood essence of these dire beasts should be able to be sold for 10 million. The 6 of us can each get more than 1 million. With this money, we can relax for the rest of the journey. Among the 6, a tall man with Eastern European blood said with a smile. Judging from the blood essence radiating from his body, his cultivation was close to the peak of a Lord-class dire beast. He was clearly the leader of this group of 6. Yeah, Leader Makarov, you're the best. With more than 1 million in our hands, our 3 days of dangerous adventures in the wilderness were not in vain. TSK, those rich people really know how to live. Using flesh and blood essence to cultivate. No wonder they're all improving so quickly. Heh, what's the use of having a strong physique? Without experiencing blood and fire, they're still a bunch of weaklings. I can take on 3 of them without panting. Several people in the group said casually. Leader Makarov's gaze fell on his second-in-command, a woman who looked to be in her 40s. Blood son, do you still want to keep the flesh and blood essence for your own use? The woman called Blood son nodded silently and didn't say a word. However, Makarov and the rest of the party were already used to her personality and laughed. You're really working hard for your cultivation. Look at you, you can already solo a peak lord-tier dire beast, right? If it weren't for the fact that you're a woman and your physique isn't as good as a man's, I'm afraid that even I, the team leader, would be defeated by you. Speaking of which, why are you cultivating so hard? The woman remained silent and did not answer. This woman seemed to be in her 30s. She had a delicate figure and was filled with a sense of flexibility and slenderness. However, it seemed that because she had been walking in the wilderness all year round, the wind and sun had caused her skin to be a little tanned, making her look much older than her actual age. What was particularly frightening was that on her face, which was mostly covered by her long hair, there were 3 extremely deep claw marks left behind by a powerful vicious beast. This powerful vicious beast had almost torn her entire face apart. Even now that it had been healed, it was still ferocious. In fact, it wasn't just her face that was scarred. Makarov and everyone in the party knew that Blood Son's body was probably covered with such scars as well. In order to obtain more flesh and blood essence, in order to cultivate faster to a higher realm, she was really working too hard. Clearly, she had to pay a price for risking her life against a vicious beast. When are we setting off again? We just came back from the wilderness and need to rest for a while. Do you want to rest as well? I'm also working with the dire wolves. They'll enter the wilderness tomorrow and I'll go with them. This time, they plan to take 4 days. For days, huh? Don't worry, we won't enter the wilderness during this time. Makarov said. The woman nodded and walked towards the temporary lodging she had set up in the fortress city not far away. Sister Blood's son hasn't rested in the past 3 months, has she? Looks like she's going to enter the wilderness again. A man in the party who looked to be in his 30s said. The last time she rested was indeed 3 months ago. Because she was hit by a disaster-level dire beast, she broke 17 bones all over her body and almost died there. Because her injuries were too serious and she couldn't move, she had no choice but to lie in the hospital. In the party, another woman who was younger than Blood's son, Diana, said in a deep voice. Alright, Blood's son seems to have a lot of hatred on her. This hatred is the motivation to push her forward. However, it's not our place to interfere in this matter, Makarov said. The others nodded inwardly. Although they could be called a party and could be said to have gone through life and death together most of the time, this didn't mean that their friendship had reached the point where they were willing to throw their lives away for Blood's son's personal grudge. At this time, a member of the party looked at the video playing on the big screen in front of them and clicked his tongue in wonder. This commercial is still playing. I remember that it was playing the last time I came back. Jiang Ningji. Find her and you'll be able to obtain a treasure that can extend your life by 100 years. You'll also be able to enjoy endless glory and wealth. If only I could know where this woman is. As long as I get a reward from that big shot, I won't have to go to the wilderness and risk my life from now on. You don't have to think too much about it. Currently, all the forces in the entire Federation are trying to find this person. However, almost a week has passed, and there's not even a shadow of that woman. According to my guess, this woman named Jiang Ningji most likely died in the turmoil at the beginning of the vicious beast calamity. Otherwise, even if she's hiding at the ends of the earth, she should have seen these videos and taken the initiative to show herself. After all, the person looking for her is a man known as the Ultimate King. Another person in the party looked at the video playing in front of them, his eyes filled with envy. Ultimate King. Diana muttered. After a while, she said, do you guys think there's really such a powerful person in this world? Can we martial artists really cultivate to such a level in the end? Can we treat apocalyptic-level vicious beasts like they're nothing? Fly physically, and fly at Mach 5? It should be true. My friend has studied this video that has been playing these days. There's no trace of editing or editing. That man named Tsing Hui might really have this ability, Makarov said. Just as Makarov spoke, the image on the big screen changed. It was no longer the scene of the strongest person in the Tsar district slaying the disaster-level dire beasts, but the scene of Tsing Hui wantonly slaughtering the dire beasts in the spatial passage on the southern shore of the Mediterranean Sea. Looking at the inhumanly powerful figure on the screen, even Makarov, an expert who could kill Lord-tier pinnacle dire beasts, could not help but exclaim from the bottom of his heart, the title of the strongest man on earth is none other than him. This is an invincible existence that has already surpassed the limits of what the entire earth can resist. If I had his ability, money, power, beauties. What can't I get? I wouldn't have to spend so much effort to find that average-looking woman named Jiang Ningji. That Jiang Ningji is average-looking in our eyes, but in the Wuxia district, she can be considered a beauty. However, compared to Tsing Hui, who is the strongest man, she's not even a little bit better. She's not worthy of a powerful man like King Tsing Hui at all. Diana curled her lips and said. Love, this is the power of love, understand? The younger man in the team corrected her. Diana shrugged. Anyway, I can't understand the thoughts of those people in the Wuxia district. While the few people in the team were watching the video on the screen and chatting, the woman named Blood's son had returned to her temporary residence. As soon as she arrived at her temporary residence, an old man and an old woman quickly walked out. Miss, looking at the woman who was obviously stained with blood, the old man with the old face showed a trace of grief. He immediately said to the old woman, Damara, quickly, treat the miss. Kobo, don't worry, it's not too serious this time. Blood Sun said calmly, looking no different from a normal person. However, when the old woman went forward and lifted her sleeve, the first thing she saw was a bloody wound. For a moment, the sentimental old woman Damara looked as if she was about to cry. "Auntie, don't be sad. It's just a small wound. With a little treatment, she'll recover soon." "I'll go prepare the medical supplies," Damara said, quickly turning to the interior of the house. "Miss," the old man looked at Blood Sun, his eyes filled with pain. After a while, he said hesitantly, "Miss, you should have seen the news over there. Let's go back. Young Master Tsing Hui has returned, and in his strongest state. The Yi family, Huang family, and Qi family have all received their retribution at young Master Tsing Hui's hands. Now, we can go back to the Wuxia district. You don't have to enter the most dangerous battlefield and fight with ferocious beasts in order to obtain power to protect the Eastern Sun Sword sect for revenge. Let's go home and meet young Master Tsing Hui again, go back." Tsing Hui, Shui Yang muttered these two words. Then, she seemed to unconsciously caress her own body. She touched the crisscrossing wounds on her body, as well as the 3 claw marks on her face that had completely destroyed her beautiful face. The moment her rough fingertips touched the wounds on her face, her entire body trembled violently. An uncontrollable fear and trepidation seemed to surge in her heart. "No. I won't go back. I can't go back. I can't let him see me like this." Blood Sun's entire body trembled non-stop. She hurriedly let her pitch-black hair down, as if she wanted to completely cover her sinister and terrifying face. "Young sect master." Old Gu Ku looked at her appearance and cried out in pain. For revenge, to protect herself, and to destroy the Eastern Sun Sword sect, the tragedy of leaving behind Tsing Hui to cover the retreat alone would not repeat itself. The young sect master had been madly fighting with ferocious beasts all these years, using the flesh and blood essence of the ferocious beasts to obtain great power and continuously improve herself. After more than 10 years, her strength was already strong enough to fight head-on with a lord-level ferocious beast, but the price she had to pay, after a while, Blood Sun seemed to have slightly controlled her faintly crumbling emotions and gradually calmed down. She raised her head slightly, and her starry eyes looked through the gaps in her hair at the high-spirited figure on the distant street screen. "Right now, he is the greatest king returning in glory, the peerless martial saint who is the focus of attention, the savior of Earth's civilization, and I, young sect master, I believe that young Master Tsing Hui is definitely not such a person. He definitely won't go back on the promise he made back then." Gu Ku's face was filled with heartache as he tried to persuade her. "It's useless, the promise of 10 years, is already in the past." The woman, Shui Yang, lowered her head, allowing her hair to fall and cover her entire face, as if she could hide in the darkness again by doing so. "Actually, Qing Su, he's destined to never become someone like us. 13 years ago, he was the star of the political world, the son of the mayor of a city. His future was limitless, while I'm just a nobody. I'm the daughter of the master of a tiny Dongyang sword sect. I can't even compare to the daughters of those listed companies. Just what part of me is worthy of him? Just what part of me can compare to his family?" Young sect master, Gu Ku opened his mouth, but for a moment, he was speechless. Let him forget me. Let's just pretend that Jiang Ningji never appeared in his life. Chapter 727. 1 Aura Sword Art, 4 Elemental Sword Art, Cosmic Sword Aura, Demon Refinement Sword Aura, God Slaying Sword, 49 Dian Sword Aura. Qing Su spent 3 days to go through all 6 scrolls of the sword technique he had obtained. Among these sword techniques, the 1 Aura Sword Art was the purest. It cultivated a single sword aura, which was in line with the ancient legends of sword immortals. As for the 4 Elemental Sword Aura and Cosmic Sword Aura, they required the gathering of earth, water, fire, wind, yin and yang to enhance the might of the sword technique. The remaining demon refinement sword aura and god-slaying sword aura lean towards mental mystic techniques. Among them, the demon refinement sword aura needed to feed one's mental demons, using them to refine the sword into sword aura. By killing the target, one could destroy the target's physical form, and also use the sword aura to trigger the enemy's mental demons. The god-slaying sword cultivated a mental sword. It needed to be nurtured with one's mind. The longer the sword was nurtured, the greater the power it could unleash. It could be said to be a sword that took 10 years to sharpen. As for the remaining 49 Dayan sword aura, it was more like a sword array than a sword aura. It required the essence, chi, and spirit to nurture 49 sword auras and sword spirits in the 48 meridians of the human body. Then, the 49 sword auras would be released together to form a sword array to kill the target. Xing Hui sensed the Scarlet Abyss sword in his hand. There were two powers in the Scarlet Abyss sword. One was the power of the Golden Crow, and the other was the power of the Torch Dragon. The power of the Golden Crow leaned towards the extreme yang. As for the Torch Dragon, it was said to be the great sun true god in the divine wilderness, but in Xing Hui's hands, it leaned towards the mysterious and strange side. It could be categorized as yin. With such a foundation, it was clearly the best choice for him to cultivate the cosmic sword aura. However, Xing Hui felt the empty quintessential qi in his body. If he were to really cultivate the cosmic sword aura, it would immediately revert to its original form once he entered a special anti-magic environment like Earth. On the other hand, the 49 Dayan sword aura's power came from one's essence, qi, and spirit. Even in a special anti-magic environment like Earth, he could still cultivate the 49 Dayan sword aura with his astounding physique, qi, and spirit. However, the aura was the sword aura was the sword aura was the aura was sword aura was the sword aura was at its peak. In addition, he could also try to cultivate the demon refining sword qi. Cultivating the 6 desires soul refinement technique would allow one's soul to improve significantly. However, because one had experienced too much, it was easy for one's mind to split, forming an existence similar to an inner demon. If he could use the demon refining sword qi to make up for the drawbacks of the 6 desires soul refinement technique, the combination of the two would allow him to quickly accumulate his spiritual power, and he would also be able to cultivate the demon refining sword aura to great success in a short period of time. Qi, Xing Hui carefully weighed the pros and cons of these sword skills. In the end, after eliminating the demon refining sword qi, the god-slaying sword, and the 4 elemental sword technique, he was left with the 1 qi sword technique, the Qiankuan sword qi, and the 49 Dayuan sword qis. Isn't it a little too forceful for the Golden Crow and Torch Dragon to replace the yin and yang qis of the universe? Xing Hui removed the Qiankuan sword qi again, leaving only the 1 qi sword technique and the 49 Dayan sword qi. Then, only the 1 qi sword technique and the 36 Tiangang sword qis are left. Currently, I can't cultivate the 1 qi sword technique in this forbidden environment on Earth. Then, I'll try to cultivate the 36 Tiangang sword qis. Xing Hui made a decision and immediately put his thoughts into action. In his mind, the method to condense and nurture the 49 great derivation sword qis circulated one by one. Very soon, the extremely dense aura in his body was guided by his mind and condensed towards one of the apertures on his body. Not long after, a vital energy sword condensed from extremely pure vital energy had already left the aperture under the guidance of his spiritual energy and appeared before him. This is the sword qi formed by the combination of spirit and soul. Xing Hui looked at the blood-red sword qi floating in front of him. After sensing it for a while, he immediately understood the mystery of this sword qi. In fact, there was nothing mysterious about it at all. In terms of power, this sword qi was not even as powerful as his punch. Other than being able to shoot the target out of the body, he could not feel that this sword qi had any advantage over his punch. It's because it's lacking qi, and it hasn't been properly nourished. The intent of the 4-9 Dian sword qi is extremely impressive. There are 50 great Daos, and 49 of them have escaped. This 4-9 Dian sword qi actually wants to cultivate the 49 great Daos into the sword qi and evolve all things into the universe to transform into the real Dian sword qi. Unfortunately, this is only an intent. This sword qi does not describe how to cultivate the 49 great Daos into the sword qi. Not to mention the method, it doesn't even have the method to comprehend the great Daos. Tsing Hui's mind guided the sword qi directly into his body, dispersing in his aperture and returning to his body. I can give it a try when I'm on Earth, but it's been 7 or 8 days. I wonder if the Earth Federation has found senior sister Jiang. Tsing Hui muttered to himself. Then he raised his head and glanced at the towering divine tree. Although only 4 days had passed, the essence of the towering divine tree was clearly a little lower than 4 days ago. But Tsing Hui did not pay attention to it, and instead came to the connection point between the Shushan mountain cave and the outside world. Step by step, he appeared outside the Shushan mountain cave. Out of the Shushan mountain cave, Tsing Hui was too lazy to reunite with the Greater One spiritual master and the others. After identifying the direction, he was about to fly toward the ancient Jade City. But after a moment, he seemed to have sensed something, frowning as he looked in the direction of the Jade Sea province. Because the third piece of Fortune Jade had been fused into the Fortune Jade, there was a slight change in his spiritual world. Although these changes did not seem to have much effect, it made Tsing Hui very sensitive to some special energy fluctuations, just like now. Originally he could not sense the fluctuations in space, but now he could vaguely feel a circle of space fluctuations spreading from the direction of the Jade Sea province. Even the Shushan region he was in was slightly affected. The Shushan region is more than 1,600 kilometers away from the Jade Sea space channel. Tsing Hui muttered to himself for a moment, then slightly changed his direction, and quickly flew in the direction of the Jade Sea space channel. 1,600 kilometers was naturally a long distance for ordinary people. Even if they were to run on the highway, it would take at least a day and night. But for Tsing Hui, whose fastest speed was Mach 6, it was nothing. Not long after, Tsing Hui had crossed over 1,000 kilometers. And after crossing this distance, he could clearly see a series of battles that had erupted in this place. From time to time, he could see powerful beasts wreaking havoc, chasing and killing the humans living in this area. What's going on? The beasts actually crossed the Jade Sea fortress and rushed into the interior of the continent. Moreover, the spatial interference of the Jade Sea space channel seems to have expanded by a few hundred kilometers. The current radius of the channel is most likely 1,300 kilometers. Tsing Hui carefully sensed for a moment, then his expression turned solemn as he quickly flew towards the interior. 1,300 kilometers was equivalent to having expanded by 2 times, and the radius had reached 650 kilometers. The Jade Sea space channel was originally in the Lake Tai region. Although it originally occupied a large area, because it was close to the sea, it could only interfere with a province. But now, the spatial interference had doubled, reaching a diameter of 1,300 kilometers. In other words, an area of 1,300,000 square kilometers had been destroyed, which was more than 1/8 of the entire Wuxia region. Why did such a sudden change happen? Breaking through the air at full speed, the closer he got to the Jade Sea fortress, the more intense the battle became. This was especially true in the air. Due to the spatial interference, fighter jets could not take off, and the entire area had become the territory of the beasts. But judging from the beasts that were chasing after him, the Jade Sea fortress should not have been completely destroyed. Rumble. With a deafening rumble, Tsing Hui finally appeared outside the perimeter of the Jade Sea fortress. At this moment, the Jade Sea fort was like a lone boat in the middle of a tsunami, surrounded by countless vicious beasts. Due to spatial interference, most of the equipment that could be used had malfunctioned, and the Jade Sea fort's resistance had been greatly reduced. Many times, they could only watch helplessly as a large number of vicious beasts crossed the broken defensive line of the Jade Sea Fort and invaded the human countries. If it were in the past, the Green Ruins would have definitely been locked onto by the Jade Sea Fortress's aerial defenses if it had flown over at full speed. However, due to the interference of space, basically half of the aerial defenses had been paralyzed. Even with the Green Ruins' arrival, the defenses of the Jade Sea Fortress were powerless. The Jade Sea Fortress has already fallen. Based on this trend, it will take at most 2 days for the entire Jade Sea Fortress to be completely destroyed. The remaining soldiers stubbornly resisting will probably all be wiped out. Qing Su glanced around. He could not care less about the vicious beasts that constantly attacked the Jade Sea Fortress. His gaze directly landed on the center of the vicious beasts, and then, he suddenly accelerated. At this moment, Xing Hui, who was originally 10,000 meters in the air, pushed his speed to the limit. As he flew, he constantly suppressed the atmosphere in front of him, causing the atmospheric pressure to reach an unprecedented peak. In the end, he seemed to be lifting an invisible mountain as he fell like a meteor into the most concentrated area of beasts 5 kilometers away from the Jade Sea Fortress. The moment the meteor struck the ground, the shockwave from the impact swept out in all directions. The ground was like the surface of a lake that had a stone thrown into it. At first, it sank slightly, and then a shockwave swept through the area where Xing Hui had fallen and pulverized all living creatures within a radius of several kilometers. Even the disaster-grade beasts 3 to 4 kilometers away were sent flying into the air by the shockwave, falling heavily to their deaths. The power of this explosion was not inferior to the detonation of a nuclear bomb with a yield of 100,000 tons. This is, 5 kilometers away. Marshal Jiang Kunlun, who had yet to retreat from the fortress, suddenly widened his eyes when he sensed the terrifying power of the earthquake. He stared in the direction of the earthquake as if he wanted to see what was happening 5 kilometers away. However, as a black dot rushed into the void, a second terrifying force spread out like a meteor. Jiang Kunlun seemed to have seen something clearly, and an uncontrollable excitement surged in his heart. He was so surprised that he looked up to the sky and shouted, "He's here." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.